I'm gonna be looking for opinions and see if it helps, you know.
Are you gonna turn the screen on, or is? You don't turn it on.
Yeah, leave it on. Alright, well,
There we go.
looks like that's
Are we
all it is.
recording yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I am making sure.
Kate said she restarted her computer just in case.
K-buckles, that we took.
How's the puppy doing?
Worse than
What
kids.
was I thinking? What was I thinking? Obviously, I need more tolerance and patience. Actually, she's doing very well.
You got yourself a new puppy, is that what I'm
Yeah.
Yes, I make the rules known, my son breaks them. Just like parenting.
My sister just adopted a blind cat, that ought to be a challenge.
Oh.
Oh,
wow.
Step it up a notch.
So they make sure to get everything in place, so nothing ever gets moved ever again. No rearranging the furniture, you can't change anything now.
So what do you say, Omega, should we get started? or-
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I would like to.
Recording in progress.
I would like to bring this city council work session to order. Today is September 5th, 2023. The time is 7:04 and we are meeting in the Sheridan City Hall Council chambers. The public is encouraged to attend work sessions, but they only participate if asked. Work sessions provide an opportunity for preliminary discussion by the city council and city staff in preparation for regular council meetings. So, let's see, roll call please, Omega.
Marianne Thomson,
Here.
Roxie Acuff,
Here.
jbuckles,
Here.
Lucy Hebert,
Here.
Cale George,
Here.
McElroy, Hodgins.
Here.
For the record, Councilor McElroy is excused absence.
Okay, so tonight is the first of some changes that we're gonna experience here at the council, so I wanna kind of go through some of that before we get started. So we haven't had an actual workshop session in quite a while, and, so it's not new, but it's coming back. So it'll probably be a little different than it was before, so you might say, well, what is a city council workshop? Workshops are brainstorming sessions intended to allow preliminary discussion by the city council and city staff. Workshops are held to present information to the council so that the council is prepared for regular meetings. Workshops are subject to Oregon's public meeting law and must be noticed accordingly. No final city council decisions or votes during workshops. The council will outline actionable steps and determine who will be responsible for each task. The public is encouraged to attend, but may not participate unless expressly invited to do so. Time limits for each topic will be set so meetings can end at a reasonable time. The Sheridan City Council Workshop will be the first council meeting each month. So on the first Monday normally, will be the workshop, and on the third, a regular council meeting. So workshop meetings will not include the following: no pledge of allegiance, no public comment period, no department reports, no public presentations unless directly related to the workshop topics. No voting will take place. This eliminates ordinances, resolutions, consent agenda, voucher directories, etc., because they are normally voted on. Essentially, workshop meetings will give councilors and staff more time to concentrate on important issues, weighing out all of the pros and cons before voting at regular council meetings. Therefore, regular council meetings would be expedited with councilors arrived prepared to cast an informed vote. So there'll be a few changes to the regular council meetings too. This is an effort to make us more efficient and accomplish more things during each meeting. So changes for regular council meetings, there is the expectation that councilors will read their packet information and email questions and clarification requests to the city manager by 2 p.m. on Monday for regular council meetings. That's very generous of Heidi, I think, to go until 2 o'clock, willing to answer these questions, so that really gives you quite a bit of time there. And then also the city manager at regular council meetings, the city manager will give a brief overview once per month for all city departments whose information has not been included in the council packets. The exception will be the attorney's report, which will be presented by Tyler. Then, following that presentation, each councilor will be able to ask one question, but no comments or conversation from other councilors at that time. So you just ask your own question, you get your answer, and let the next councilor ask their question.
Say that again, please. I don't quite understand.
One question per councilor, and then no comments or conversation from other councilors at that time.
And at that, I guess that's what I missed. At what time?
At the time that, okay, so she's given the report,
Right.
and the councilor has asked a question, and then following that, we just move to the
Okay.
next councilor's question.
You get one and that's it, that's fine.
Per thing. So anyway, the city manager will also give a brief monthly overview of committees when this information has not been included in the council packet. Example, parks, the art committee, cooling center, things like that. And then I'd like to see, the city manager will also update the council on grants and projects to include a monthly list of accomplishments at the Hebert building, status of Sheridan Road projects, status of Hebert Plaza construction, status of any other major project or concern to the city of Sheridan. And again, you get to ask a question about any of these, for each group, each councilor gets the opportunity to ask. And remember, at the end of a regular council meeting, there is a place for council concerns. So if you have more you'd like to say, that will still be there. Okay. So that's what we have to say about that. So tonight, we did have a proclamation set for tonight, and that person, I see somebody at the door.
I think it's them.
Yes.
Okay, I was just about to say, we'll have to postpone it.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. There are chairs right up front if you'd like. All right, so let's go back to the first one. I know you guys drove a long way, didn't you, too?
Yeah.
Did you drive from Beaverton?
We are from Portland.
Oh, from Portland?
Yeah.
And I bet you ran into some traffic. Okay. All right. So our proclamation tonight is to recognize Vietnamese heritage and freedom flag. And let's see, there is a copy of it on page, inside the second page of your packet. So, Lucy, I gotta get it on.
Oh, sorry.
Hi. Nice to meet you all. Are you?
Yeah, how?
You say
nice to
Cal?
meet you.
Oh, nice to
Yeah,
meet you
Thomson.
too. Just lovely emails and good communication. We appreciate that. So welcome to Sheridan. So I'd like to read our proclamation to you. So, okay, if you'd like to come over. So here,
Yeah, you can come to
you're welcome too. I'll just stand right over here.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So this proclamation recognizing the Vietnamese heritage and freedom flag. Whereas Vietnamese refugees have proudly resided in the city of Sheridan and surrounding communities since the conclusion of the Vietnam War, and whereas Vietnamese Americans have put forth their full toiling energy building the city of Sheridan, surrounding cities in a multitude of prominent areas, including industry, economy, culture, education, military, military service, and whereas Vietnamese Americans have counted on the city of Sheridan and surrounding cities as being their second heart, mind, family, and whereas Vietnamese Americans embraced Vietnamese customs and traditions that have continually practiced through generations, and whereas a large number of Oregon's Vietnamese Americans respectfully embrace the yellow and 3 red striped heritage and freedom flag as a symbol of Vietnamese American community, and whereas it is the will and desire from the Vietnamese community of Oregon and its community members that the Vietnamese American heritage and freedom flag be recognized as the official flag of their organization in the city of Sheridan. Now therefore, I, Marianne Thomson, Mayor of the city of Sheridan, Oregon, do hereby recognize the Vietnamese American heritage and freedom flag as the official flag of Vietnamese Americans and the city of Sheridan. I resolutely encourage all to join in the reverent recognition of this cultural Vietnamese heritage and freedom flag. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Sheridan to be herein affixed this 5th day of September 2023.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you coming out and,
I am Councilor. I am President of the Vietnamese community of Oregon. On behalf of my board, thank you so much for recognizing the Vietnamese American heritage and freedom flag. We appreciate your time, your consideration, your kindness. Yeah.
Well,
And
we
have a
appreciate
really
you
good
too.
communication
We
between
did,
the
indeed,
mayor
right?
and our board, and especially with me.
No, if everyone was as polite in their email, we would just, it would be so nice. Very, very wonderful communication.
And this is
Oh,
a thank you note.
Oh.
We
wow,
present to the
thank
city
you.
of Sheridan. Yeah. And this
Oh.
is the flag, so we can have a
Oh, so we can
picture.
see how that
Yeah.
looks. That is wonderful. Thank you for bringing that out. I was trying to imagine the look of it, so it's
Yeah.
just wonderful.
Yeah.
So, very nice to meet all of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all of your effort to recognize our heritage flag. Yeah. And you can keep this one as a
Oh.
souvenir.
How kind of you, that's generous. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. Put that with this, all right.
Yeah.
You know, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I also understand you have a long drive ahead of
Yeah,
you.
yeah, we will stay for a while.
So,
Thank you so much.
let me set this over here so it doesn't fall. And I just, thank you,
Yeah.
and thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to drive out tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Keep in
for-
touch.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course, we had a really good communication.
Yeah.
Vietnamese community of Oregon and the city of Sheridan.
Aw, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was so nice, it's almost hard to go back to the topic of homelessness, but I guess we have to. Okay, so, another thing, so at workshops, we'll have 2 or 3 topics, and we'll talk more about this later when, we will choose, topics for, the following month's workshops. So, but this one, we are starting out with a discussion on homelessness. And I wanted to go through a few things before we get started. One is, that first, we kept saying, remembering that we're having these town hall meetings. So the first one we had was August 30th, 2022. And it was before I was the mayor, but I was there at the meeting, and I took some notes. And so I just kind of wanted, just kind of an outline, so it's gonna go pretty quickly. So these people were there: Grand Sherman Food Bank, Judy Adams, Sheridan Churches United, Julie Schumann, Yamhill County Supported Housing and Recovery Services, Jason Hennis and Callie Gamble, Encompass West Valley, Howie Harkema, YCAP, which is Yamhill County Action Partnership, Laverne Pitts, Development Director, Amber Hanson Moore, Youth Outreach Director, Ashley Parker, Regional Homeless Manager. Additional services that were not represented at the meeting were Meals on Wheels, the Lunch Bunch, American Legion. At that time, they were serving hot soup and provided veterans services and clothing. So then on November 15th, we met again, and it was more a resource roundtable. City of Sheridan Library serves as a cooling center. Sheridan Nazarene Pastor Rachel Roberts offered the church as a community resource. Compassionate Pathways, Sarah Hilliard, ICAP, Samantha McCourt Youth Outreach Program, Sheridan School District, Dory Vickery, offering a staff position that supports homeless students in clothing and hygiene products offered, working on a school-based healthcare system. The Mission in McMinnville, Kate Sawyer, talked about overnight emergency housing, 30-day housing in separate building, and by appointment they offer shower, laundry, job training, recovery classes, and they were working on transitional housing. And then we all attended, I think most of us did anyway, an LOC homelessness workshop where we learned about the laws pertaining to homelessness in public spaces, and we've been over that a lot of times since then. So I think we all kind of have a pretty good understanding. And then in February, we met with Willamina Homelessness Response and Prevention for a community conversation. So we met at the Willamina Library with 17 officials from both Yamhill and Polk counties to discuss efforts to address homelessness issues. And then I guess it was also in February, we went out to Grand Ronde for a tour of the pallet houses that they put up there. So a tour of 10 pallet houses, a community room set up in a larger module, a second modular to serve as office space, and one smaller modular with 2 separate spaces containing 1 shower and 1 toilet. So that's, that's kind of the history of our meetings. And but since then, we've also been meeting for the cooling center at the American Legion, and we've been helping Judy get better prepared at the food bank because the demand is growing. But then the second thing I want to run by us before we start into what we want to do is, first of all, Sheridan is the 3rd largest city in Yamhill County. So, we're a big part of Yamhill County. And we have a Yamhill County transit system, and we contribute to that, which makes riding those buses free for everyone. So that's a really good thing. So then I thought, well, what do we offer now? So Health and Human Services, Yamhill County Health and Human Services offers adult mental health and addiction services, which include outpatient mental health, licensed residential care, medicated assisted treatment, gambling treatment, community-based services, peer-delivered services. They also offer crisis service, peer-assisted crisis service, and psychiatric hospitalization. They offer public health, which is communicable diseases, emergency preparedness, environmental health programs, health promotion, parent support, and a public health clinic. They also offer veteran services, so buddy research help, federal and state links, flag etiquette, funerals and cemeteries, local memorials and photos. They help connect veterans with merchants that recognize our veterans. There's volunteer opportunities. And then there's the Youth Mental Health and Addiction Service. So that's outpatient mental health, parent support, trauma-informed care, wraparound services. They help with documents and forms and parenting young children. So adult mental health, which is something we've been concerned with, they offer assertive community services, behavior support services, enhanced care outreach services, evaluations, supported employment and education, supported housing programs, outreach, assistance services, integrated support. They call that OASIS. And then there's wellness classes that they offer, living well with chronic conditions, healthy living class, fitness classes, walking groups. And then there's employment and education services. So for employment, I know that's another thing we care about. They offer career planning, vocational counseling, work incentives, benefit counseling, resume writing, interview skills training, job search assistance, job placement, ongoing supports to help keep a job. So under education, they identify education goals, pre-enrollment planning, education assessments, program selection, applications, finance planning, grants, scholarships, enrollment, books, resource materials, and there's more. So that's what services are offered by the Yamhill County Health and Human Services. And in addition to that, there's YCAP, and that's who the food bank works through. So they have a program called Any Door Yamhill Coordinated Entry. They help with rentals that are rental in arrears and deposit assistance, ongoing housing assistance in connection to help with utilities. They help search for an apartment. They offer referrals to shelters and other local resources. And they give their phone number. And they offer screening. And they also offer energy and water assistance. So you call, you make an appointment, and they will walk you through that. That's YCAP. They offer rental and financial assistance for homeless prevention, rental assistance. It says these programs range from 6 months to long-term assistance, and there's contact information there. They also offer a housing stabilization program that is tenant-based, open-door housing. There's rural Oregon leasing and supportive services, and stabilization. So that's what all those programs are from YCAP. And like I said, they're connected with the food banks. And so they also put out, I won't read all this, but there's food banks in several of our towns, including Sheridan. And they also give an example of the kind of income you can have and qualify to go to the food bank. But the thing is, they are not going to make you prove that. They make people prove that they're a resident of Sheridan, but you don't have to prove your income. In fact, I've talked with Judy, and she said they're not even permitted, nor are any of the volunteers permitted to ask anything about a person's income. So, there's really a lot of these, but anyway, there's community resources, there's 211 that people can call for whatever information, a family place children's relief nursery, there's a community action partnership, Chehalem Youth and Family, that's a ways away, Head Start, Henderson House, Hope on the Hill, Lutheran Community Services, MV Advancements. When I had the bulletin board, we had a person placed with us from there, and she was delightful. Mid-Valley Parenting, Oregon Food Bank, United Way, Willamette Valley Medical Center, Yamhill County Care Organization, Yamhill County Chemical Dependency, let's see, I don't want to say some that I've already said, Yamhill County Homeless Resources, and Your Community Mediation. So that's another one. And then there's a 48-page book, and I just kind of took a copy of the index to show what kinds of things are available that way. So there's things like childcare, there's one called Bear Hugs, and there's family support and activities, which is early learning, family activities, family support, parent education. There's things that cover basic needs, baby items, clothing, emergency rent and utility, furniture, haircuts, meal sites, transportation. Let's see, I don't want to miss anything, but I don't want to repeat it either. There's crisis and legal services for crisis lines, domestic violence and abuse services, legal assistance, education, which we talked about, health and wellness. There's connections to dental, medical, mental and addiction services, and seniors and disability services. That's another really good organization. And numbers to call for homeless shelters and services and housing programs, and there's a number for veterans. And there's yet another one that I won't go into that, it's small print. But my point is, yes?
Are those all in the
Mostly, but not all. There's some here, and there's some in Newburgh and like that. So here we have the food bank, of course.
Right.
And trying to think what else we have here. And there's things through the school, right, Cale, for, I know you have
It's usually students.
student liaisons, yeah, so there's some, here, a lot of it is in McMinnville, but, like I said, we do have the ability to get people there via a free bus ride, So, okay, so that's, I just wanted to know that. And then I wanted to, so I'm telling you that because we've been talking about these issues for more than a year. And so, and having town hall meetings, and we discuss it at nearly every council meeting, and, so I think, so what I've done is I put together 4 scenarios. And I'll read each of those, and then if, and so this is very rough, so if you guys like one, you know, I'd like to go around the table when we're done, and I'd like each counselor to say what they like and don't like, and then after that, Heidi too, she's got a lot of information. So, let's just dive in. Scenario 1. So, in this scenario, Roxie and Denny got a list of all city-owned properties within the city limits. And they set up criteria. It had to be more than a 1/4 acre, couldn't be in the floodway. What else, Roxie?
I don't know that we talked about the floodway specifically, but what we were looking for was convenience and location. Something close to transportation, something close to food, something close to the library, something for the services that some of those homeless people needed that we had to offer, close to the food bank, close to the veterans. So, kind of a place that's not at the light, but yet not on the main street, but still not so far away that they couldn't access any of
The other
those services.
Okay.
And not so tiny that we couldn't offer more than one type of service at that location.
Okay, so in this first scenario, we set aside the city property on Sheridan Road. There it's near the community garden for a temporary homeless location. We used the $225,000 to place a portable shower, restroom, laundry facility on site, and to add lockers. And the reason for the lockers is, I learned at the mayor's meeting that people say that they won't leave these places to go look for work or go to the services they need because they fear someone will take their things while they're gone. So, I saw in McMinnville, they do have a bank of lockers by one of the churches on Second. That could be a good thing. So then we would share this, it would be a mobile portable shower, restroom, laundry facility, unit that we could share with our neighbors. We would need to establish and post a schedule of when and where. And I just wrote a note to myself, consider requiring a key for the laundry and shower use to try to keep them from becoming vandalized. We would install lights and cameras to prevent vandalism and illegal drug use or sales. Find out if we can add a county transit bus stop in the area to accommodate transportation to the services we provide in McMinnville. Set up the lockers with locks to ease concern, like I just said, while a person is seeking work or services. If an area is not kept free of trash, garbage, etc., all people staying at the site will be given notice and required to move out for cleaning day. I want to add here that I learned also at the mayor's convention that in Seaside they had quite a problem, and there they set up, they had some property that they set up for that, and they warned the folks that, you know, this has got to be kept clean. And if you don't, then they move everyone out, the city goes in and cleans it, and then they come back. And he says, people don't like moving out and back, so they'd rather just pick up their garbage. He said it's been working really well for them. So just a thought. So we would not allow cars or RVs in this area. And another thought would be consider gift card payments for basic needs for a person appointed to keep watch on the area and to keep it clean. And then make it a requirement that these individuals connect with mental health, substance abuse, or whatever other services will improve their lives. So the pros, in my opinion, is that this would make us in compliance with House Bill 3115. It would enable our deputies to enforce camping rules in our Sheridan parks. It would enable the cleanup of contaminants in the Chester Moore Park, human waste, used needles, things like that. City water is available at this site and is located near the community garden. Okay, The cons, we'll maybe talk about that later, okay, so that's scenario number one. So scenario, now we're gonna go through the whole thing.
Okay.
Scenario number two, wait to see what transpires at the Sheridan Country Inn property purchased by the tribes. Invite tribal leaders to address the council, determine which services they will provide, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, unrelated mental illness issues. Determine whether or not the new county-operated apartment on Sheridan Road can prioritize Sheridan residents. So like if they get through this program, will they be accepted in those new apartments on Sheridan Road, which are for recovery purposes, for people who live in recovery? Okay, that's scenario two. Scenario three, work with Encompass Yamhill Valley to provide and maintain services locally. Get signed contract to assure services are limited to Sheridan residents. Get assurances that no car camping or derelict RV camping areas will be established. Assure a plan for upkeep and cleanliness. Scenario four, continue to do nothing. Willamina is taking this option, and to this point, they tell me they haven't seen any noticeable changes. So those are the four scenarios, but my final note on that is the council is responsible for representing all citizens of Sheridan. Members of the public commenting on August 24th council meeting may or they may not represent the majority. So would the council support a community survey for a broader understanding of Sheridan residents' views?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just go right around the table. You want to start, Roxie, or no?
Sure, why not? First of all, so I don't forget your question about a survey,
Yeah,
I'm a no.
you're a no on that, okay.
As far as option number one, Sheridan Road, I'd like to take part of that. I think it's a good start. I'd like to see us start small and see what the need is without having to delve terribly deep into numbers and different options. As it was presented, the mobile washer, dryers, showers, that kind of thing. I also want to remind everyone that when we first talked about it, it was also an option to use in case the city needs it for other emergencies like power shut off, fire, flood. I mean, there's so many other opportunities to use something like that that would be used in more ways than just one.
Okay.
I'm also in favor of finding out about the Sheridan Country Inn from the tribe, just because I don't know, I wouldn't want to pass up that opportunity. It's close to town, it would be awesome if it was something we could work with them and it would be part of our project. I don't wanna call it a problem, but if we could use their sources also, I mean, in conjunction with this, maybe ours can go farther. I mean, it's just, I don't wanna completely rule it out without finding out first about that.
Okay.
I'm worried about option number three, only because I'm not sure that we need to go that big yet. I mean, we may in the future, but I'd like to know that first by perhaps option one and part of option two, whatever. And number four, we can't not do anything. We just can't. We need to start, and we need to start to formulate a plan. And this is a great start. Thank you for helping us focus.
Yeah, so we can pick the best of each one if we want, whatever we wanna do, but.
And I think this is a great start, and I'm sure others have more ideas that haven't been brought up yet, but we do have to start. And I think this is a great start as far as focusing on getting started.
Okay, thank you, and I meant to ask Heidi, would you mind doing the 3-minute timer as we go around?
Yeah, you bet.
Sorry.
No, you did great, Roxie, I just meant to ask her before we
Well, I
get
tried
started.
to come prepared, but I didn't know about your plans, so it was great that I could take what I had planned on talking about and fit them in with what you had brought.
Thank you. That's great. Cale, you're up next.
I kind of think concern is that what happens when either the money's gone, or how are we gonna, pay for this? Option number two, I'd like to know what the Confederate tribes plans are just in general, but if we could utilize that along with maybe Molina, but it sounds like Molina is just be doing nothing, which, but those lists of resources you read off, it sounds like most of them are in McElroy.
But we do offer the free bus there, doesn't
Right.
matter.
But I don't know how, I don't know if the resources are either known about or being utilized. I know at the library they had a resume workshop and nobody showed up, and that wasn't here in town. I don't know what we can do if either just having some of these resources. It sounds like people could get a lot of help if they knew about some of these resources, but I don't know if they're willing.
I wondered that when I was compiling everything available, if people are aware of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be, get that word out there.
But I think even providing some resources and maybe not going so far as, maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not to provide housing, but to have a shower or the laundry or whatever for some of those people who need it. And then we could share that with other cities even. And I know we're the third largest, but I think there's a big gap between the second largest and the
True
third.
enough, yeah, that's true.
And I'm wondering what McMinnville and Newburgh are doing. And if, I don't know if we can really come close to that with our resources and budget.
Right.
But I think for the survey, I guess it wouldn't hurt. I guess it depends on how much time and resources it would be for staff. But I think it might also only be answered by people who are in favor of it not happening. So it might be kind of skewed, but it might not hurt.
Okay. All right, Liz.
As far as the survey, I think that's,
Hold on, let me restart here.
okay,
Give me a second between people.
okay.
Okay, go.
So as far as the survey, I think yes, absolutely, we should get citizen input. As far as services, I think that one thing that is a hindrance for us right now is that we don't really know the numbers we're dealing with. We have no exact idea, is it single women with children, is it men, so we know our demographic, that kind of limits what we set up. But I think that since there are so many resources already available in McMinnville and in Yamhill County, that I really like the idea that we started with, was providing that mobile van with laundry, with showering and laundry services, and that could be incorporated into a resource center as well. I mean, the resources, information pamphlets about all the resources available. If someone was taking a shower and they came back and someone was on site and took the time to talk to them and found out what their needs were, then that information could be given to them. And then that way we wouldn't have to worry about setting up, a transitional camp or a permanent camp and putting finances into that. But if we got a laundry and shower van and provided a lot more information, and even gas vouchers, if someone did have a car and needed gas money to get to those resources, we could provide gas vouchers. But I don't think we should try to reinvent what's already happening in that and spend our wheels that way and spend money that way. We should just try to provide emergency services with information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're pausing and then it'll be Jim. All right, Jim, what do you think?
I think Cale hit the nail on the head. I don't think the city's equipped to be able to set up what you put in scenario number one by itself. But if the Camden Valley could run that without guidance, saying, here's what we want. You're not working for yourself, you're working for us. So we have some control over what they could do. We do this at all the sites. Well, you're not doing it in Sheridan because we don't like that. And so we would have the final say over anything they want to do. If they claim that they have a good access to more money, well, we're gonna need that if we do this. Number two is everybody's amenable to, having us, that would be great. There's a lot of property there. Do nothing? No, we cannot do nothing.
Okay. How about the survey, are you in favor of that?
I'm afraid it would come up with negative numbers that weren't necessarily representative of the entire community. The people that are upset, as we saw the other night, they wanna say, don't do this. And the people that either A, don't care, or B, want to do it, but figure it's coming anyway, wouldn't respond. So I'm not sure what kind of response we get.
Okay. All right. And
Let me restart.
pause and then.
Make sure you got that timer on.
All right, okay,
All
we'll see.
right, we're gonna talk like the little Mexican jumping game. So first of all, the survey, I think the survey would be interesting if it was just, we downloaded that information with all those resources into the city website. And people had to read that to get educated before they could do the survey. It would only be on the city webpage after they read the information that you just told us about tonight.
Okay.
Because there's so many resources that would diffuse a lot of the rumors that go around outside of uninformed people. So I think informing our citizens would be really good. Put it on your city website, then they have to vote on that city website after they read that information. And they might read it and they might not, but you know what, that's better than just putting it out there.
When I was thinking about the survey, I wasn't thinking about the things that on these different scenarios, I was just thinking like whatever the council gets together and decides would be a well thought out questionnaire for people to weigh in. That's what I was thinking.
Well, I think a couple of those was very condensed with the colors, that I just don't think people are as informed of how many things that can be done in McMinnville, and we have free transit. That's our part to try to get that there while we're in this, undisclosed phase, trying to figure out what's going on. And I think it would be not as threatening if they knew, well, those resources are in McMinnville right now. And I know some people say just push them to Mac, but what I'm saying is, hey, look, that's probably not gonna happen. If this is what's out there in a possibility, because like somebody said, there's a big difference between number 2 and number 3 in Yamhill County by population wise. So that's one thing. And then I think that also somebody mentioned something about, how many people are we talking about possibly doing a transitional supervising? I mean, really, I think that's kind of an important number before you can start getting, because we only have $225,000, correct?
Right.
And I'm working my way over that part too. And then the Sheridan Country Inn, sure, but I wouldn't sit there and wait forever, because it sounds like if they're keeping it for tribal members, that's pretty much where it's
I
gonna
think
be.
that's the case.
Well, I thought that somebody, this information that was sent to me
Okay.
to some link, but I could be wrong, but if it is, you just can't count on it. If they do, great. The gold mine insured could both go in and participate and help on that if they were willing to, and do nothing, of course, that's not an option. And then it comes to city-owned properties, and I can probably take my glasses off for this one, because here I go again. I think we should really take into consideration seriously the cost of portable showers and looking at the tiny house across the street, kind of like what Matt Luck said at that one meeting, and I was going, I understand that. I could look into it as a realtor, what it would take for, even if you use the bottom floor, you could use that for, like what the library does with resumes. You got me on the timer?
Yeah, but I sure you can have a couple extra.
So,
because
and, it's still, and I meant to go over there and take a look at the garage, because I'm pretty sure the garage is just that they took the doors off, and I've seen people who could put showers like in the garage. Then that would save a lot of money versus making some, I think we should just look into the options that we have across the street for security purposes. It's close to all those things you're talking about. The police could supervise it much easier. It's lighted, it's got a couple homes, but a lot of it is in that commercial downtown sector. I could have said more about that one.
How about the survey, Lucy?
I said,
You said.
the survey, remember we were having a discussion on that.
Okay, so.
If you would put some of your, maybe
Oh, that-
one of your best pages, like maybe the one with the colors on it, and say, read this, this is what they have if they go to MAC, and we provide the service for that temporary intern.
Okay, all right, and then let's let Heidi tell us some stuff.
Okay, I'll set the old timer for myself. Okay, hold on, 5 minutes.
Ooh,
Just-
can.
Just kidding.
You can, don't.
Okay, I believe that the site must be staffed 24/7. I don't think it's gonna work any other way. I'm interested in what Encompass Yamhill Valley, I want to know their funding structure and how they can get money for us to do this so that there is no bill to the city. I've been working on scenario number 2 with the tribe. It's, looking okay for them to provide on-site services, but it's going to take a very, it's gonna take a lot more conversations, and by that, I just mean perhaps the mental health, and these are all big, huge, gigantic question marks at this point. I think the most likely scenario for something to happen would be working with Encompass Yamhill Valley. I would really encourage and like to see the city start at least the task force that they have set forth in their slides. Community survey are always great, but they do often have people who are swayed, and so I'm not sure that we can eliminate people who want to answer more than once. We'll have to figure that out with technology. I do think that the way to start is the mobile shower and the laundry, because we will use that for emergency services. I think mental health people have to be on site at all times. I think we should look around for other partners, maybe a church to do the resource center, since the school is gonna be using the place that we had hoped to be getting. The resource center serves all kinds of people and could work as a satellite for those agencies and a lot of those services you talked about. I know it's a really huge challenge for people to get onto the bus sometimes if they're moms and they have multiple kids, or they're a single dad and they have multiple kids, or if they have mobility issues, or if they've been kicked off the bus. That happens to people. So the bus is a huge challenge, I think. I would like to, let's see, I would like to keep working on the resource center. I had tons and tons of nonprofits lined up for that, but then the location isn't gonna work out. All the way from Coldwell Banking to do finance and first-time home buying for people, and finance, your checking account stuff, all the way to Provoking Hope, who will be able to help people that are in crisis and just to do some outreach in the community. I do not think that the city is equipped to do scenario number 1. And I hear what you're saying about there's so much service, but the people that we see often here in Sheridan that are homeless, that come into City Hall or the library, they do not have a phone. They do not have a lot of gifts or ability to use the internet to do their own researching and to figure that out. And from what I understand, it is very difficult to even get the utility services because you have to wait for them to call you back, right, for the water bill stuff. So you just call and then they don't always even pick up the phone. So we see that as really a difficulty here. That's it. Oops, I pressed it. Just in time.
All right, so. The next, oh, yes.
How much time I have, but I think we all have some good ideas here, and I think we, if we can list them, and kind of pick and choose what best fits. I don't think, 1 doesn't fit by itself, 2 doesn't fit by itself, 3
Right.
doesn't fit by itself, so what next,
Mhm.
I guess, but, I'm not sure I know what I want, but at least this information that we got tonight, should help us to make a decision a little sooner than what we have been prepared to do up till now.
Good.
And I didn't realize there were as many resources available until
I
you
didn't
brought
either.
that list.
Yeah, until I started looking here.
So, that is huge, that is huge. I
Jim.
have no idea.
I think Liz hit it right, and I just missed it first time around. We gotta know how many people we're gonna help. If we set up for 50 people and there's only 10, well, we've kind of overcommitted and spent a lot of money we didn't need to spend. And if we set up for 10 and there's 50, we got a problem, so we need to get the numbers straight.
Do you have an idea for, maybe Heidi does?
So I've done some research. I asked the police that serve Sheridan, that are dedicated here, and they work with them just on every shift that they have. I said, if we were to have some sort of a lodging or a place to rest your head, how many places do you think? And the answer was definitely 5 immediately would be filled up. but a best number to shoot for would be 10. And most of your numbers are gonna start to come in after, if it works, with couch surfers.
But you don't know how many.
You don't know how many, but we could have used one today, just so everybody knows. We had a pretty good sized, security breach with somebody.
Okay, Jim?
What I kind of foresee,
Yes,
because
the
there's
security
so much
breach.
in it,
They sleep at the library, I see them.
we can set up some sort of, like an intake service. Hey, homeless, come to us, we will help you get there, what do you need? Okay, here's what you need to do, get on the bus, go to Winville, these people will help you. They know you're coming, because we're gonna let them know, and then they can get that assistance from there. And then, as far as where they stay, I still have no answers, but we should say, okay, and when you're all done there, hop on the bus and come on back, and we'll, see where you're gonna stay. We don't know yet, but I think if we're gonna offer these services, or try and offer these services, having a place to live is one of the services we have to provide.
Are you in favor of building a shelter area?
Area,
Or
yes.
shelter?
No, I'm not in favor of building a shelter, one big building where everybody,
Okay,
lives and be happy.
Congregate.
so
Yeah.
more like the cabins or the, what do you call those, the
Pods.
pods?
The one, have you passed that around yet?
Yeah,
Liz has some, and then I
Yeah.
saw one at the state fair that the carnival people use.
so I'm gonna pass this around, but may I talk about it for a second
Sure,
first?
or the
So
other one
you
got
want to
stopped there, I
rebuild?
think.
This is
This
the
was just built,
tractor house. and
But
everybody
in that
sees
is
it.
one that's got like 8,
Yes, yeah, again, just like the, portables that were offered to us for free, I don't think that kind of setup will work. I just see issues, people, in a situation like this, people have to interact, and maybe they don't want to, that's part of the reason they're homeless. So if you give them their own little space of whatever it is, I don't know what it is, if it's a tent, whatever, but that's their space, they got a locker, they can keep things locked up so they can feel free and safely go somewhere to find out better service for themselves. Fantastic, but in the meantime, we just don't know.
okay, and Liz, you brought in a picture. Is
yeah, I
that-
wanted to piggyback on what he just said. There was a statistic in here that I read today that 70% of people that live in an individual space are more apt, they have more success transitioning out to permanent housing versus 25%, well, that's not the right, so it'd be 30, right? 30%, if they live in a congregate space, in a one big building, and they don't have their own space, they don't do as well. They don't have as much success. So individual spacing is really important, to have that time to think, to be alone, to store your stuff. There's still social issues in large spaces. But this pod that I'm, and so you guys can see it too, Cornelius just built these pods, and they're really not very expensive. It looks like, if you look at it, the bottom is, pallets, and then the structure over it is like fencing. And then I don't know what, probably really heavy duty tarp around it, but there is a door that locks, and it does give individual space. So I'll pass those around.
Do you know how, can I ask a question?
Yes,
How much is that picture you sent around roughly, do you know?
I just saw it yesterday
Oh,
afternoon,
okay.
but Marianne has brought it up before.
there's some right there, they just got stopped right there.
The one with the showers and the laundry is 25,000.
Yeah, yes,
We have to pay for it.
there's several things in that stack that, yes,
Do we wanna talk to like maybe a different group? Well, I know we talked to Church at the Park, talked to Campo Valley, I don't know if we wanna talk to anybody else. I know somebody brought up, an article, I think, was it like Project Turnkey or something like that, I can't remember.
Yeah.
If that's a separate group, but I think they're based in Salem though, and, they might be, too big, or they might not work for us, but
yeah.
we might wanna talk to, because I know we talked to at least two, but, at least as a council, but maybe you
Yeah,
or Heidi, maybe you talk to more people.
yeah, no, that was it for the organizations, I think
what is his position to assist us with this?
So he should be assisting with this.
Should be.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Heidi.
So I know that in Compass, I've had a conversation with them, and they help, they can get people to MAC for their appointments. That's part of the services that they do offer. And so then if there are more local services too, that, you know, the tribe is working on, that would be really helpful to cut down that time too for, you know, getting people on and off site. But it is very, very early in their workings of what it is. That's really.
Be down around Florida, right?
My question was, is that one dish hours for 25,000, is that just getting my attention?
So the other,
These were from a long time ago.
Oh, that is what listening.
No, like,
the other option that has came up is that there is some, wood out there that could be a reduced sale or a cheaper sale. And then using the FCI, they have a construction class, and they would be interested if we had some blueprints. And then there's somebody in town that I know that does some blueprints, and then our engineer can sign off on those if we want to. But then they would be able to build like small cabins, which would probably have a much longer life than some of these other things, than the pods. And so,
it looked nicer.
and look nicer, sure. And then in the, you know, eventually we would be able to, if we were to get more people and permanent housing, then we would be able to use those for a different purpose. You know. But the other thing that I've been learning in the last just few days is that there needs to be, like absolutely needs to be a place to transfer people to. So you have to, you know, think about this triage, but then you also have to think about the second step or and especially the last step, what permanent housing looks like. Yes.
So I was wondering, on that note, for the housing that is operated by the county, whether we could have a meeting with them to find out whether that could help us with that or not.
I've been working on that.
Okay. So, all right, go ahead, Roxie.
I guess if we decide that we're going to, let them camp overnight in at a certain spot and have some housing, then we need to go back and remember that then we need to have it monitored. And so if we make one choice, it's going to force us into making the other choice. So once we start, it's gotta be monitored, gotta be supported, gotta be funded. And so we have to look at everything, no matter how small we start, so that we can make sure that we can continue what we've started again. So, I know it's general, but, so when we start deciding, we need to start, look at the long-term effects of whatever we do decide on.
Okay, and Cale?
I'd still be, I guess, worried or nervous, I'm not sure what the term would be about, if we are having it staffed, if someone's there, about the funding.
Yeah.
Because I know we have money now and it's grant, but I don't know if we could get more, and especially, I've experienced this a little bit with the Barbara Roberts project. We worked with a group that, you know, we were gonna get grants and funding and donations and stuff, and that was kind of what we thought, because they were like, oh, there's so much money out there. And we did get some, but I mean, the project's not really ready, and that kind of makes me nervous, because it's kind of like, you know, we have the assumption that the money's there, but we don't have the money, so we can't really count on it.
I think about that too, yeah. Okay, Jim?
Well, let Heidi go first,
Oh,
because
okay.
she probably has more information than I do. Ask questions.
I was just going to say that my recommendation to the council is to start the task force within Compass Yamhill Valley, because that will compose, it's in one of the slides of all the people that they want in that group. And to start that task force, let that essentially committee meet, that task force meet, do their weighing and their, you know, pros and cons and all of that. And then they eventually have to come to the city council. But during that time, we also need to be pressuring Encompass to make sure that they have the proper avenues for the funding, because the city just does not have that kind of funding to keep going. Oh, shoot.
What is it?
It's our new alarm system. Sorry.
About to go off, sorry.
Okay,
I
Cale.
just had a quick follow-up for Heidi. For that task force, I'm trying to remember on the slide, I looked at it, is there a spot for community members?
Yes, there is.
That's what I thought.
Oh, and it's not a grant, it's a legislative, money that we are awarded.
Oh, sorry.
Just in case.
Do you want me to read what it is?
And Jim?
Just, obviously looking way ahead, going through the three-step process, low bar, medium bar, high bar, transition to permanent housing. We got nothing in Sheridan, people with money can't find a place to live, so what are people that don't have much supposed to do?
I'm a big believer that it's our missing middle housing that's a problem, you know, because we do have low-cost housing but we also have $400,000 or $500,000 that we don't have hardly anything in the middle there for people, like a couple people working and they're gonna buy their first house or whatever, it's really difficult. So I think that's something we kinda need to keep our eye on too.
Well,
See.
I saw it when I moved back here, is obviously you don't wanna live in Sheridan. There was nothing for us to rent, nothing,
Yeah,
well, except for $2,000 a month, which is a little high for us.
yeah,
So, we lived in Willamette until I got my house built, but, I was doing a lot of beating on doors and trying to find a place to live in Sheridan. Nothing there, I don't think it's changed all that much either.
yeah. I know that's true, somebody else said that somebody moved out of an apartment they had, I said, oh, you've got it, she goes, no, we've got a list this long of people who want it. Liz?
I agree with Heidi that we need to establish a task force. And I think there was someone that spoke at the last meeting, a citizen that was actually homeless at one point, and she would be a great person, an asset. Kirsten King, I think her name was. But anyway, that's not for me to decide, but I would advocate for that. But I feel like we're spinning our wheels because we're passing around pictures of housing, but we don't really have enough homeless people to spend all that type of money and then sustain housing. I'm gonna go back to what the original idea was, to share a mobile bus with Willamina and have, the basic needs. Hand out hygiene kits, let them take a shower, wash your clothes. Here's a gas voucher if you need it for these services, and give them the resource in education. Because I don't think it behooves us to build housing if we don't have that many homeless people, especially when there's housing in MAC. So.
Okay, Heidi?
I think
Oh,
we'll
Lucy,
see
you
this
next.
for me.
So, I agree with that first of all, but this is just out there. I think the little covered wagon is pretty cute. But you would have to get a quote because little boxes are kind of unattractive. I like the idea of a front porch when it rains in Oregon so much. And they could kind of personalize. Yeah, I thought that was a cute, you said they were cheap, so I'm just gonna go on that. But I'm sure you can make other ones cheap. I just wanna throw that out because it rains. It would have its own little personality. It might give them more of that individual's self-worth in a temporary situation. And the other thing is, here we go again, is the little house across the street. It could, if the city didn't own it and I did, I could rent it tomorrow, just the way it is. So I know there's ways to work around certain things, even though the city might have a certain, and there's also things that the city can do because there's certain barriers you can get through, you just have to figure out how to do it to make it work. So I think that should be looked at. If nothing else, if we don't do anything else, it would be strictly a resource center for like Encompass to come into. Because if Encompass comes here, we're gonna have to buy for them something to be in, and they could be there and they could start just the transition of saying, hey, look, here's a place you can go into MAC. How many people do we really have that need to be here? And maybe we could work something out with them, because if they're looking for a place to hold a business, maybe they would do their counseling for us in lieu of paying rent for having an outreach center in Sheridan. And then it would feed both parties, and it would be a wash for Sheridan when it comes to that part of it. You could add extra money for a grant to do more of this and that, but in the beginning, don't you want to find out how many people we're going to be like doing these massive kind of intricate surveys, and they need a place to sit down, or they're going to do it in the city hall, or they could, use a place that the city has. And I only say that because as a realtor, I could rent that house in a week and just clean it up but I know that there's other stuff that people are gonna throw out there, but I look at the logistics of how it works in the rental. It's not gonna be a rental, it's gonna be more like a little business outreach, so it would not be the same thing, so I'm pretty sure there's possibly ways that the city could get around if they really looked into it. Thank you very much.
And there'd be parking. Sorry.
So I wanted to share with everybody that I've been looking outside the country for other ideas that are out there. So this is about Canada. This is probably a very unpopular thing, but in Canada, they did a study where they gave $7,500 to each homeless person. And this is how they spent it. So it's called Canada Land of the Homeless, right? And there's a couple of really good quotes. It says, in fact, Canadian lawmakers are because what they found was when everybody assumed that the money would go to naughty things, right? And in fact, it didn't when they started studying it. So it says, in fact, Canadian lawmakers are currently considering a bill that would create a national framework for a guaranteed income to cover basic living expenses for people over 17. That would include temporary workers, permanent residents, and refugee claimants. They said this. Whoever this quote is, but anyways, it says the solution to homelessness is housing, especially in a city like Vancouver where housing supply is low and rents are astronomical. It will be very hard to sustain a homelessness intervention without offering long-term affordable housing. I would not want to see these findings used to take pressure off the critical need to provide both long-term affordable housing and long-term income security. And so if we also look back at our slides that Encompass provided, that's one of the things that they talk about, income stabilization. And today I asked the police to pick out of these three columns, the ones they think Sheridan should work on based on their experiences. Out of the emergency column, the priority was crisis services. And I can tell you that what you guys are talking about sounds really nice, but when you start working with the homeless and they are unfortunately going through a terrible mental crisis, whether it be drug or alcohol induced, or it's just pure mental issues, you cannot offer services. They do not. It is a long way to get down there. I don't even know some of the homeless people that we've had in here would right away take the shower or the laundry because it is like they're having a problem in front of you, right? And then the transitional, the police picked income stabilization, and for the third, the permanent column, they prioritize permanent support housing, and not support housing, by the way. So it is very, I recommend for everyone to have it is a really giant challenge right now, even for our public works and our library and somewhat city hall, but not nearly as much as our parks, public works, and library staff endure.
So we're in crisis.
They're in active crisis, yes.
Okay, Jim?
I like what Lucy said. I'm worried about what will happen to the Hebert elves if we do that, but still, I think it's
Well, we
not
have.
Hebert elves, because I was from the elf house, I think, just a little.
Okay.
But, you know, if you gotta start somewhere, as far as the mental illness that Heidi was just talking about, I can't say, but I wouldn't think that if you offer a service up, the first ones to run to the service are gonna be people with mental illness. They're like, not necessarily thinking, you know, like, straight ahead, that's where I need to go. No, they're over here somewhere, and, you know, they're not, they need some sort of, you know, push or pull to get them in there. But, just to let the homeless know what is available, and here's what we can do to help. Gotta start to do something.
Okay. And Melissa, do you wanna add something there?
No, I actually wanna ask, may I ask Heidi a question? So if our homeless population is in crisis, mental health crisis or addiction crisis, what could we offer? We'd have to pay for counseling, right? We'd have to.
Well, that's why I really, really recommend for the task force. Because the task force is gonna put you in touch with the agencies, it's gonna bring about local piece to it, what we're trying to share and what we're accomplishing and what we're seeing. And then it also brings in the faith community, community members in general, and nonprofit service providers. So what I'm saying is, I have no idea what this looks like, but I do know that there are different people that we see too, right? We have to know that there's couch surfers, there's people doubling up into homes, like 2 or 3 families with kids all together. And that's different than a person that we see, outside on the streets that is actually in crisis, or we feel threatened, to be around for the safety. So that's different. So that's why I think that this task force has a huge, gigantic job, and they'll have to be able to be people that meet regularly and most likely during the day so that they can get paired up with these, YCAP, probably be an agency here.
And
Yes.
and to add to that, I think that's very good in this impasse, or
Encompass.
sorry.
Encompass.
And you know whatever kind of impasse, but anyway, I think that they could be a directional to those people, because I think the first thing we have to do with a mental crisis is earn their trust, and they trust nobody. And so it doesn't take one time, they might have to come over if they knew she was in a safe, and I'm gonna throw it again, it's kind of a non-threatening, cute little building over there, but anyway, I'm just gonna keep loving it, folks. It is a non-threatening building, and if you had somebody over there and maybe Jim talked to them on Monday, maybe they came back on Wednesday and Jim is still there, I think that repeated, because some days they are in good shape and some days they're in crisis, but they're not always in crisis. And if they find that Jim is consistent in his behavior every time they go in there, he's going to earn their trust, kind of gives me goosebumps, which is the beginning of transferring and transitioning into a helpful mode. But you could always ask that lady she doesn't have any a mental, but trust me, where I'm at, I see some, and I've actually talked a little bit, and it's just eye contact and acknowledgement of them, which can be difficult for some people to do, but I do it because I think that's what they need, so I think that could help.
Okay, and Roxie?
I think all of us want to consider something about Encompass's services. I guess I'll be the one to ask, how much are they gonna charge us? And how do we know at what point, that it's too much, or how do we get out of it if we've agreed? Where's the line?
So that's why I advocate for the first step at all to ask, Encompass if they even charge us for the task force, right? So I think that that's step one. I mean, we already have money secured to pay John, and I really like John, but maybe we shift that money from John to Encompass if that's what if they do have a price tag with it. But to my understanding, this is their work. This is what their mission is to do. They have fundraisers that they do, and I think and they have been looking for an opportunity to come into the West Valley, but they haven't made that happen yet, right? So I think that, to me, that seems like a good place to start.
Okay, Jim?
Well, I don't have my notes, but it seemed to me that the fellow with the beard, whose name I can't even remember right now,
Harkon?
he said they have access to people that can get us money. Even if it's to pay him, I don't care, but if he has that access and keep things going, turn loose.
I am concerned, like, in regard to what Cale said, that you go in and thinking people are telling you, oh, there's lots of money for that, and then, something as important as education for our kids, and
Nail
maybe
it
not.
down with them ahead of time, say, hey, you said your money out there, where is it, how do we get it? Oh, well.
Yeah, okay, Heidi?
That's it. It's Measure 110 money, which is not being used for education, but as a person that's been in city government for a long time, I can tell you that there is a dip that was definitely taken when marijuana money was taken from cities and then put into Measure 110. And I know that there just hasn't been, so from my understanding, the legislature is going to be really pushing into people spending the Measure 110 money now.
Okay,
So
They should have done all along, right?
they should have done it a little longer, but
So if we just pushed on the bargaining table to say, they want to relocate to the Yamhill County somewhere, correct? They're looking for a place.
they're looking, you're talking about Encompass?
Yes.
I don't know that they're gonna relocate themselves, I
I mean,
don't even
you're
know
just-
where they are, but they've been looking for a branch, how's that, like a base
So
branch?
here we go, the little house across the street, being French.
Okay,
And once again, it would cut down possibly on, if they do say, well, you know, we really like you, we'll give you a reduced rate, but it's gonna cost you money, and say, well, if we give you this place, then maybe they'll say, you know what? We'll do it for you for free. I mean, you should throw it on the table as a, no commitment, just as a leverage.
okay, is the second Cale?
Oh, I was going, let's say something else, but that just reminded me, I know, Heidi, I think in the past you talked about when you're applying for grants, it's nice to have like kind of a foundational or kind of show people that this is what we have been doing, this is what we have, and if we started with Encompass there, we could at least say that this is what we're doing, this is what we've started, and that might help the future grants. If I remember what I was originally gonna ask, then I'll raise my hand.
Okay, yeah, Heidi.
That is very logical, I think, that the task force, that would be one of the things, the major things that would come out of that, especially if the task force was to be able to move, you know, within like 4 to 6 months to start to turn out some results for us. I think that you're right, and right now is the time, I mean, I have 2 grants on my desk right now that are basically for this type of work, social services, and bringing them in specifically into somewhere in Yamhill County. So I think that we should go into it with the mindset that maybe, you know, maybe it's just like this, like right now, and this is the job, once again, of a task force, like right now, we're, you know, in the emergency phase, and then over the next 3 years, we start to think about the transitional, and then we, you know, or maybe 1 year, I don't know, I'm making this up, of course, and then we, you know, gear ourselves to the permanent. I have some ideas for the permanent, but, you know, we don't really have the time of day, we're not there to really talk about the permanent piece. So, once again, I think that the council, I'd like the direction to be able to go back to Encompass Valley, or Encompass Yamhill Valley, and say, you know, tell us about how much money you're gonna charge us, or how, where you would get your funding just to do the task force.
Okay, and Cale.
Can the city use the legislative funds to get that building ready?
I do not know that.
That's a good question.
It was for the specific things, remember when we had those sheets of paper and we rated them?
Mm-hmm.
It was for the specific things in there, which was about building something, so I think if the task force came back and they said, you know, we've evaluated and this is where we think the money is best spent, then once again, the power of a task force is there, so we could say, this is the most efficient way for us to spend our money.
Okay, does anybody have other ideas besides the piece of property on Sheridan Road or across the street? Roxie?
Sheridan Public Works. The existing building, we are planning on relocating Sheridan Road. This property we own, it's off the main street, but it's close. And it's big enough to where we could do different types of things with it. It's a possibility, I mean, and we own it. If we do relocate it, then we'll either need to find another use for it or sell it, like I said, but, it's a possibility. Yeah, that was something else Danny and I talked about.
Yeah, I kind of remember that, yes, and Heidi?
One of the things I think we should consider, or the task force should consider, I'm like Lucy advocating for things. Anyways, is to make sure that we take into consideration the flood map as we're thinking about the site. Because part of the requirements of the state was that it would be a dry place. And so if there is a flood, I would really hate to take people who are already, you know, stressed, right? They're doing a stress thing and then have to move everything in the midst of a flood. But one of the other places that I had considered, just in the last few days, was the property that we used to have the recycle center on. So it's kind of small, but it's very just had
Cherry Hill,
That's like over 2 acres.
yeah,
Is it flat? Is it flat?
yes, okay. And just put in.
It's like a landing, right, in the road, isn't it? What kind of?
Is that the big
It's an island.
piece in the middle?
An eye,
It's an island. is
An
what it
island,
is.
okay.
and it is out of the flood area.
It is.
And then, of course, we've talked about the one on Highway 18, but that's outside of the city. And I don't know so once again, I think that the task force, the job would be to vet, which of these housing things makes the most sense. And we're only gonna know that if we have like a nonprofit like Encompass to help guide us through it, and they're very local, the homeless people in Canada may or may not be different than the people that are homeless in Sheridan, right? But we don't really, I'm speaking on behalf of all of you, I don't think any of us are, out there in the trenches of the homeless, so.
Okay, Cale?
As, say that's probably a good reason to have a task force, is because they know more than probably most of us do. And some of those members, law enforcement, especially, gonna have more experience, I think, with homeless people, and even having people from Encompass, and I think listening to what their recommendation is probably a good first step.
So it sounds, Heidi, like when you spoke with the sheriffs, they gave an estimate of about 10, or 5, but that 10 would cover us.
He could put 5 in tomorrow.
And then, when I originally spoke with Judy at the food bank, she estimated about 12 people that showed up there, showed signs of being houseless, and that they appeared to be living in their car, or there were special food boxes made for them that they could just open and eat it. Okay. So that was about a dozen. So I'm wondering if that's our numbers, around between 5 and 12. And then also, I got different numbers from, and I mean people who need shelter. So when I talked to the school, and there was, all the students were housed, it may not have been ideal, but they had a roof over their head. And so I'm wondering if, because that is a difficult thing to sort out, because I asked different people to give me a number on this, and it was kind of all over the map. But if the sheriffs gave us 10 and the food bank gave us about a dozen, something like that, that might be our number of houseless people that we could serve. So, Lucy?
For when you talk to Encompass, sometimes when you're dealing with a 501, the 501(c)(3), that they can, sometimes when they have occupancy of a building, they themselves can get grants to improve that building. So that would also not be any cost to the city if they applied for those grants and fixed it. And I've seen that actually happen with other nonprofits when they're renting the buildings.
Okay, and Heidi?
So one of the 2 grants that is on my desk is specifically for that, is for rehabbing a place for a resource center. But back to the numbers, so that's the second task of the task force.
Figure that
Actually,
out.
that's their number one. Our number one job
Yeah.
here is to create a West Valley task force with 10 to 12 members.
Okay.
And then the number 2 is to collect the data on the homelessness in the West Valley, which means existing data sources and outreach. I'm curious about what outreach, what kind of that will, data that will mine. Investigate the land and properties, prioritize investments, and that's those 3 columns: emergency, transitional, and permanent. And then make recommendations to local governments, and so that's you. And then the goals and milestones for 2024, and I think that that's where we're all kind of really wondering, what will it look like and how will we get there? But this is why I think that this task force is really important. We did, in the city budget, set aside, I think it's $130,000 though, for this kind of effort, and that's where John was paid out of. So if we just kind of geared the money for John and stuff over to the Encompass, but I am curious if they're gonna charge anything.
And they've been out now 4 times, which is,
Yes.
but still we have more questions for them. So, okay, so if we form a task force, then of course they would need to be there, and members of that task force would need to have all these questions ready for them.
Now,
Oh,
question
Liz?
for Heidi.
Or-
Where is that in the budget, Heidi? In the general fund?
Yeah, the project.
ARPA
is-
I don't have the budget here if you wanna, I'm just gonna look for it, but
Yes,
ARPA fund?
no, ARPA funds for sure,
Okay, and Liz?
So I have a
But
question
they're
for
in
Heidi
the
too. Did John sign a contract with us? So we're obligated to
Oh.
use his services, right?
So.
So-
No, John's a very nice person, I'm sure I
So,
can
because
let
unless we can dovetail the task force and John together, why would we pay for two?
We should not.
Right, so that's where I'm going.
It's under the community development.
Okay,
656-11.
so I
If it's
think
not
that
over.
one thing that we maybe decided this evening is that we should create a West Valley task force. So does everyone, how does everybody feel about that?
Yes.
Through Encompass.
Yeah.
Yes, doing
Lucy, how do you feel about that?
I just wanna know, you know, me, I just wanna know how much.
Well, that's what I think maybe we.
Yeah, it would be
Just,
nice to
I
know.
mean, it's a good question to ask, but just wanna know this first.
So,
But yes, I am,
Everybody.
in lieu of that question.
and then, okay, go ahead,
I'm just trying to develop, you should probably go to Liz first.
Heidi. Okay, Liz?
Well, I'm going back to what I just asked you, can we break our contract with John if we go with this, if we go with Encompass?
I am very certain that he will be nice enough to do that. I will let him know that we would like to go with a local company. A local nonprofit that offers that. So it sounds like the direction from the city council, that you want me to first call Encompass, ask how much money that they would charge. Do you want to now tell me what a cut? So I think John was like 14,000-ish.
Yeah, I think.
So do you, if you are okay, if they say that they're gonna charge that amount, and then me then negotiate the end of the contract with John, and then just flip that money over to Encompass? Is that what we're looking for me to do?
Well, I'd like to know
How
if they're
soon
gonna
do you
do
want me
it
to
for
do this?
free or
Yeah.
for
Oh,
their price.
I
I
understand
don't wanna
free.
tell them upfront that we've got $14,000 that we'll spend on.
And 25% agree.
Okay,
Okay.
yes.
See if they already do that mission.
And I think that we need those answers, the cost and, before, we make a decision.
So you, okay, let me, I can move fairly quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, so that timeline, they have that timeline of September to December. So I'm trying to figure out what you want to vote on, or if you're okay if they say free of me then going and ending the contract with John,
Mhm.
and then coming back to you, Tyler and I starting to develop a contract? Or are you saying that you want me to come back with all my findings, report all my findings, and then you decide? I'm saying if you could give me some framework, what you're comfortable with now, that is
Okay.
what I need.
I have a couple of concerns when it comes to Encompass. I've been told they both just have hearts of gold, but I know there's, and that they really are doing good work with big hearts. But there's a couple things that concern me. And so cost is one, but also I know, I hear from citizens that they are concerned about getting overflow from McMinnville, for example, or old RVs showing up in town, or things like that. So I know he said that he could work that, but I would like to be able to assure people that working with Encompass, that's not what they've got in mind. So, there was some untrue rumors floating around, and I just want to be able to stand behind what we have told people. So,
Yes, I totally agree with that, and I think that can be worded into a contract
Okay.
fairly easily. And they know that.
Yeah.
They definitely know that,
okay.
that we're not interested in being a suburb for the
No.
McMinnville overflow. They know, and they know that it is very challenging for us to think about RVs too. We already have plenty of RVs, and I don't know if people realize that we're dealing with.
And they're so expensive to deal with. We just don't, and we do not want to take on a problem like that. If it could be avoided.
And so what's happening too, just so people know, is they're being parked on private property that is not always being watched, like maybe the owner lives somewhere else,
Right.
and then they park there, and then that owner finds out through code enforcement that RV's there, and then the owner gets very upset and tries to just put it into the city street. But then we know because they've reported it and we've had record, so then they can be charged with dumping it in the city street, and so that's not creating any friends.
No.
So then, it's just like a really big challenge, because then that property owner is responsible for removing disposal of that or something they didn't do.
I understand the frustration with
So,
that.
I don't, there is no desire to continue to,
No, to build that.
no.
Yeah.
And from what I understand too, you know, working with the Church at the Park folks who at first were the, you know, the very trenches of the stuff in Salem, which was very, you know, I saw a lot in Salem, even though I didn't live in Salem, but those Church at the Park, that nonprofit, they went in first and they, you know, mission-based it, they said, we're gonna do this, and they tried a bunch of different things, and one of the things DJ told me that was not good, that they tried, was mixing, people in the pods with RV people. It did not work, and I can explain if people want more, but just for the brevity of the meeting, it did not work,
Okay.
so.
Can I ask Heidi a question? So let's say the city of Sheridan has that property on Cherry Hill, and there was, because I'm just talking for the normal property owner, and an RV goes in there and parks tonight, what would be the remedies so that the city wouldn't be responsible, you know, when it get in trouble, would you have to report it the next day?
Well, we have had that exact thing happen. So we work with our code enforcement, works with our police to try to locate the owner. Often, about 50-50, the owner is no longer the owner. They just never changed it out of their name at the DMV, and the purchaser never changed out of DMV. So then we start to go into the mode of investigation and ask the neighbors who they saw and who they saw doing what. So then, it goes from there. It goes in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's local people that were couch surfing and they bought the RV from somebody local and then they moved it over there. Sometimes they take it to a certain location on a city or church property and they dismantle it, take what they want and leave the shell. There's a lot of things that happen
That's
that
a
I don't
mess.
know that people really know.
Is there a way to avoid that owner of the property, I'm using the city for an example, to make sure that they wouldn't be responsible for a RV dump?
I would say just make sure your property is fenced and locked.
Okay.
Watch who's coming and going on your property. Do not let people that you don't know very well stay the night for longer than I think it's 2 days.
Okay, so what will our steps be in forming our task force?
I have one more question.
Okay.
So that was the question I had, who forms it, Encompass, or do we form the task force?
I think it's both, if you don't mind me saying. I think Encompass knows the agencies to bring, and then we're expected to figure out. The police I talked to today, he said, you know, if he doesn't get called out, that he's very interested in serving on this. So, you know, it's both, the local, so it'd be Marianne, myself,
Yeah.
and who else is on the
So
list?
and Cale, and from the
Cale, we have
and
somebody
Gwen,
from the school.
and
Right,
Gwen,
and so we'll sprinkle in our locals, and then we should ask them to give us a list of the agencies that they think, and then we can vet those and make sure that those are, you know,
Okay,
a
let's
good fit for us.
let's work on that this week and maybe talk to some of these folks before our next meeting. Okay.
And
then-
Tyler and I will make sure in the contract that we propose to you that the citizens are from, they are residents of the West Valley.
That's
of
what-
Sheridan specifically.
I'm not sure we're ready to tell you though, at what point, you know, some of the parameters. I don't think we need to know all the information before she comes back to us for a decision.
Mhm.
But what are we gonna allow
Yeah,
them to work with
If
to
they-
do their job?
like essentially if they Encompass says yes and they're free, I would then like that to be the go flag for Tyler and I to start to draft up a partnership. Oh my god, to draft up a partnership agreement and bring that to you at your September meeting. If they have a cost. Who is she?
I'm
It's
ready
the
to
Barbara
speak
one.
while you're looking.
Which one?
So,
The Barbara one.
Oh,
Yeah.
does,
thank you.
does that mean that, because we've given you enough stuff tonight to drizzle through, once they tell us, yeah, we'll do, let's just be optimistic, we'll do it for free.
Yeah.
We've given you enough other options to drizzle through to give us a nice little outline of what you've gathered, and then, you know, like one and an A, B, C, you know, we can at least do the one, you know, the numerals first. I think,
I think I'm following this.
I think you are, it's a little,
Okay,
So that's,
So-
because, sorry, Mayor, I would just, I don't, because otherwise, if we keep doing the work sessions, you won't see anything until the end of October.
Oh,
well,
a long time.
Yes and no.
yeah,
There are fails.
Yeah, but if you're gonna contact
when we have
John,
the regular
you
meeting,
could
I believe it's
expedite
the
that.
18th.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, and then there's the workshop at the beginning of October. and the third week.
but Marianne, if she were to get the drizzle and the impact, then when we come to our council meeting, we could vote
Yes,
to continue in that direction, because we really don't know what she's gonna supply, but she's very, very thorough, so we all know she's gonna do.
yeah.
And if
So
it's
that
not
could
enough,
be
yeah, if it's
the
not enough,
18th of September.
yeah, it could be the
Or
18th
Is that
of
the right
September.
number?
or whatever the next one is.
Yes.
And so if I, for some reason, went off on a wild tangent, you would still be able to approve the contract, right? So you still have that, so I feel confident in myself that I'm not going to go crazy. No, we appreciate that. I feel very connected, I would say, with the general guidance that's been given.
Okay. All right, so since we do have to stop it talking about homelessness at some point, I guess we'll say that. We've discussed that fairly well. So, and we know what we've accomplished is that we will look into the contract, Heidi will get back to us and we'll make it, and that will help us in our steps forward and further consideration about how we can handle this problem. Okay. And then the second thing, on that is, crime, garbage, littering at Hebert Memorial Plaza, Chestermore Park, and Morgan Street Park. So this is all part of that, and I think that these problems would be alleviated once we get a handle on. At this point, we have to allow people to sleep in our parks. Not in Hebert Memorial Park, we don't, but, because people have to exist. So if we don't have an alternative, then we're gonna put up with some of that. So that's the way that.
Do you mind if I give a quick update to the things that Public Works has done?
That would be wonderful, yes.
Okay, so we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 that we are implementing, short term, medium term, long term. And we have successfully completed the short term, which is simply putting up orange construction tape, which we know people can cut through. But we put up orange construction tape to the areas to block off the entire underneath of the plaza. And then we put up no trespassing signs and no camping signs. I had permission from the county to also put the orange fencing around their posts of the bridge, on the feet of the bridge. So we got permission and their blessing to do that. And what that does is, it doesn't obviously eliminate anybody from like using a knife to get in there or something, but what it does is it creates a visual barrier for the police too. So the second somebody enters over there, it's very clear for everybody that you have trespassed, right? And so they were really looking forward to having that little visual thing. It also allows us to hopefully eliminate some of the garbage that was collecting under there. I mean, we were pulling out basically like pallet houses out of there and all kinds of materials that are terrible. And our public works staff was having to do that very regularly. Like, people didn't think that we were ever doing it because it was so frequently happening. We put a garbage can, I hope I have not double checked, but they told me that they put a garbage can now on both sides. So that would be the side like behind the museum, and then there was one on the Chester Morgue, because, at least there's the option to use the garbage can, whether or not people do, but if there's.
I just wanna say I
garbage can.
stopped and there's garbage all around the garbage can and not a
Oh,
single
there
thing.
you go. The other thing is, hopefully there's like 3 pieces in there, please.
I hope.
So we have the garbage can out, we have the fencing out, we have the signs out, so now we're moving to phase 2. We got a quote today to add the 2 cameras under there and make sure that they're called bulletproof, and they're completely vandal-proof.
Yeah.
Vandals can't do anything, yeah.
Is there electricity though?
So that's phase 2, is also to get the electricity there, so we have that. I believe we have that ordered from Stuck Electricity for them to come out, but we already have electricity on the site. The actual obstacle is getting the Wi-Fi there, so that's become more of an obstacle. But that's also money, by the way. All this is money. So, but then, to phase two also is the police currently have, access to our new security system and to the security cameras, and so what we're going to need to do is, there's 3 that are dedicated to Sheridan, and then there's more that are in and out of here. And they don't have direct access, but they wanna be able to see under there, so we're setting up a TV in the police station that cast the cameras. And they can be able to, click through all the cameras in there, so that's part of phase 2. And then phase 3, of course, is our favorite, which is we're gonna be doing the engineering work is being done already for the seawall underneath, and then after the whole plaza gets its whole facelift or whatever reconstruction, then that area will shut down, so. We have passed phase 1.
Yay. Jim.
I had a note here, just what you were going over. Short range, medium range, time frame on the long range, it's not gonna be soon, is it?
I'll find out on Thursday. We have, the Hebert Memorial Plaza Group, Riverfront Subpark Committee, I don't know how I call them all these things. They're fearless leaders. One of them is Ernie, and he is working right now on some drafts with the engineer.
And, I'm very glad about the no trespassing, and I'm wondering with the orange tape, that's gonna help, but I'm wondering, because you said they can still camp there, but they have to be up at a certain time. So I'm wondering if, like in the morning at 8 o'clock or whatever, which would be past the curfew, that anything that's seen laying there is picked up, because like Jim, I think was maybe sharing last time, if you keep, or maybe it was Denny, if you keep picking it up, like let's say cardboard, if you keep picking it up and they don't have the resources to come back, they might figure out that this isn't the best place to be,
So we got
doing
all
that.
of our no camping signs hung, so there is no curfew there, there is no camping. And a person was just arrested out of there for littering and then trespassed in all the parks in Sheridan.
So,
There is no camping in the Hebert, Chester, or Plaza.
well, I meant like at our last meeting, I think somebody said they saw cardboard just laying down by the river, and I think I'm talking about that kind of, stuff.
Yeah,
that
we
kind of
try
stuff.
every day.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's like every other day.
Yeah, no, I was
Down
thinking
there
even
to find out.
bi-weekly,
I know, no, it's like never ending.
No, I just,
And
I
then our work
appreciate
is
that.
like, Heidi, we keep trying.
I'm training a baby puppy, I think he can handle that.
They do, Lucy, that's the point.
I know, you gotta just keep on it.
It's ridiculous, I know.
Oh,
I would love for volunteers in the community to go put the garbage, get those pickers at Harbor Freight, pick them in and put them in the trash too. That's a really, Marianne and I's dream is for more people to start using that space, because that's a very big deterrent to crime. Would you like to talk about that more, Mayor?
yeah, it'll solve a lot of problems if our community simply use the park. Grab your family, grab the kids, go have a picnic at Morgan Street Park, and just be there, if you wanna have a, play some music down there, or whatever, have an event there, but the more we use it, the better, that will be, so yes, Jim?
I know that the group has been talking about at least one picnic table, and there's been several suggestions of what do you do next? Maybe even a cement one that would never need to be moved again. Nobody's gonna bother, but I think having someplace, something like a picnic table, just that simple, for people to be able to sit down and have a picnic rather than have to have it on a blanket on the ground.
And I believe the local Rotary would be, willing to pitch in
I
and
think they
help
would.
with that, so yes, Lucy.
Two things, now that you mentioned that. One was the, doggone it, I forgot what it is, doggone it. But the other one was, picnic tables at the riverside, because Buckles was mentioning they've already had $4,000. And I said, instead of putting a really nice table down there, you could have one that would fit maybe for the pavilion, and then take one of the oldest tables in the city owns and put it down there for a demo, just to see how it works out. Because if they did do something with it, it's already the least of the favorites, if there's even such a thing.
Yeah.
and try something like that instead of something like brand new.
Okay, and Heidi.
The Park and Recreation Committee met last Thursday, and this was the subject at their meeting, and they were making a recommendation. It's of a concrete table that does not move.
Well, that's good too.
Cause you can do so much with those, you can cut them, they can be colorful, they can be painted, they can take different shapes and sizes.
And it
Will they
doesn't float
be-
away.
In the camera view? That area?
But we're not supposed to talk about security
Oh,
during
that's right.
public meetings. so.
Okay,
I
and
don't think-
also,
But however, the location of the picnic table has not been decided, but the police have picked the locations of the cameras.
okay. All right, so we're gonna wrap up that. We've already reviewed the presentation slides by Encompass Yamhill Valley, and we've all been, everybody has really pitched in to this conversation, and I truly appreciate all of that. It's going to take everybody's thoughts and ideas to get the best solution and get started on some good progress. And so,
I remember, maybe we should put on the city's website, volunteers needed for pickup along the riverfront. If you wanna help support Sheridan, the best way to support Sheridan is to go out and actually pick garbage up. And then you could have maybe the pickers at the city hall
well, you can check them out.
and
Or
they
the
can go,
library, you can check them out.
you know, yeah, like check them out if you really wanna help the city. And then we'll have a list of their names and we can thank them for helping in the city and, you know.
Maybe groups could do it, like the
Yes.
scouts or
Yes.
people that just are youth
That would
groups,
be-
things like that. Okay, so we gotta move on.
Okay.
We're gonna be here till 3 in the morning. Just kidding. Okay.
Only 2.
So the next item, 3 there is the draft resolution 2023 HH, a resolution adopting the 2023 council rules of procedure. And it starts on page 27, but I think it's actually 29. That's a lot too. So, I'm debating whether we want to, yes, Roxie?
Whether you can start? Oh, I think we should.
We think we should.
How many times have we already?
Already pushed
Even
it
if
out.
we can't get through it all, maybe we should at least get
At least
started.
get started. What do you think, Cale?
Was there, I think you mentioned you attended mayor's, was there anything you wanted to add after that to the council rules of procedure? Like,
Yes.
that's not maybe in here
Yeah.
already? Okay.
All right, so as we page through, one of the first things I want to change is I know that things have, in our history gone here and there and everything, but I want to make it on page 29, item B, agendas. B says, no council approval shall be required for an agenda of any meeting, but I would like to add the mayor will approve the agenda prior to distribution to the council. And,
Marianne,
What?
Did you say
Oh,
that from the
29.
top? You mean, oh, okay.
Page 29 looks like the resolution.
yeah, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
you-
oh, wait a minute, then,
Excuse me.
okay, 35.
There-
Okay,
there
yeah,
you
I'm
go.
looking at
Thank
the
you.
page number on the procedure.
Okay. 35.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I want that, I just wanna have a final look, before it goes out. So I would like to make that change. And
Say
then,
that again, I think while we're looking for the page. and
Okay,
I'm not
sorry.
writing it.
That's what I was gonna say.
Uh, item C under B. It says, no, that's not it. B, no council approval shall be required for an agenda of any meeting.
Oh,
But I would,
agendas, under agendas,
Yes.
okay.
agendas B, and then I would just like to add in there, the mayor will approve the agenda, the final version of the agenda prior to distribution to the council. And yes, Amy?
I know that that is important to you, Mayor. I think that we should have a conversation with legal about that. The
It was-
reason why is because if councilors, like 2 of them, any 2 or more members of the council who wish to have an item placed on the agenda shall advise the city manager at least 1 week in advance. But they also have the ability to put items on the agenda, and so if the mayor can then veto those items, that becomes a circular problem.
Okay, under agendas, on our website, where it's LOC, it does say that responsibility for the preparation of the agenda usually rests with the city clerk or recorder with assistance from the city manager or administrative officer. The mayor or any councilor may have a matter placed on the agenda if that is permitted by the rules, and the agenda may be reviewed and approved by the mayor before it's distributed. So I'd like to do that, and if there is something that the council wanted, one of the things I'm concerned about is that I think sometimes our agendas just get to be too long before you know it, because, oh yeah, we better talk about that and that and that, and the next thing you know, we're here till 11:30. Yes, Cale?
Would it be too complicated, maybe I guess, I'll make it up with this, to have the language in there where the mayor, could approve the final agenda, but they can't remove, anything that's added like that on E. So like if two council members wanna add something,
Oh,
the mayor
yeah.
can't just take it out.
No, I would not. I would not want to remove something placed by two councilors.
Right, but would it be a good idea to add that in the writing then?
That's a possibility, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And Roxie?
With that in mind, isn't there a conflict in agendas E, which says, any two members of the council who wish to have an item placed on the agenda shall advise the city at least 1 week prior. And in the next page, still under order of business, D, where it's proclamations, number 2, an item may be added to the agenda without approval by the mayor or the presiding officer by the request of 2 more council members. So,
That's at the meeting, right?
yeah, but isn't that kind of a conflict? First, if you tell one council person they can't put something on the agenda without letting know a week ahead, the 2 council people can do it the day of the
During
meeting.
the actual meeting.
So I'm just wondering, isn't that some sort of a conflict, or am I missing something?
To further conflict it, I believe that we just passed the duties of councilors, mayors, and city manager, and we need to look at those too, to make sure that we didn't do something else there.
Okay, I did not see anything, but I could be wrong. so-
Okay.
Liz?
So back to, 5 agendas and then C,
Mhm.
why couldn't the language just be the mayor and city manager may place routine items and items referred? Oh, I thought that also meant take them out too, but, because you wanna have the final review, right? Could the mayor be added to C? And it just,
Mhm. Yeah, just,
I think that we do need to clean up some of this language, but let me just let you guys know too, that it can be, I don't know if everybody realizes, it can be minutes before the agenda is finalized. And so I am never trying to design rules for one person, because I do have the full faith in Marianne to do a great job. But we're always trying to design rules for somebody we don't know coming down the line. So let's keep that in mind, like, you're saying I would never do that, but we also need to make sure that if something gets out of whack, and then another person comes along, that person doesn't have some inherent power.
in history, we've had the opposite problem, where things were not making the agenda when people were assured they would. And so a check of that would also help. There was,
Yeah.
by the mayor afterwards, and then to make sure that nobody, yanked it just because they didn't want to talk about it, or they weren't in favor of it, or something like that, so.
How did that happen?
I don't know, but just a safeguard. just
So
a-
I think at one of our Monday meetings where you and I and Tyler meet, that we should figure that language out, because there is, I think, some conflicting stuff in the 3 different parts.
Okay,
So we'll do that. So V agendas, and then,
so on that, same one, but I just want the council to, so just like what we were talking about a second ago, the city manager may remove any item on the consent agenda, any item of old business, any resolution, or any ordinance placed for first time reading from the agenda at any time prior to the time the meeting is convened. And I would like to add right there with mayor's approval, because of not problems we've had now, what problems we've had in the past where you could just like, I don't wanna talk about that and get rid of it. So, if there's a reason to get rid of it, fine, like, that's, but just, again, planning ahead for when maybe we don't have such a great city manager.
Quote your finger, what page you pointing on, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's page 35 of the council packet.
Okay, so it still is on page 35, I'm sorry, I was gonna say else.
Okay, go ahead.
That made me, I remember, so how, okay, I'm gonna really go into this, what I call the snidely whiplash. Yeah, that guy here. So how would even the mayor know that you needed a resolution or an ordinance for things? Because that is generally the job of the city manager, is to know when a resolution or an ordinance is more of a legal thing, but the resolutions are the job of the city manager to know when those should be created. And so if I'm a bad guy or a bad girl and I'm not doing my job, you wouldn't even,
This is removal though.
yeah, but I'm saying, so, okay, yeah, removal.
Okay,
But say, in that line
Place
under
first.
D, proclamations, it says the mayor or presiding officer may add or remove items from the agenda without the need of city council approval.
Yes.
The decision by the mayor or the presiding officer to add or remove from the agenda can be overridden by the council, but it sounds like if it's not, either one of them can still do that, right? That says.
okay.
So, we need some cleaning up.
You need some
Another
cleaning
thing.
up, yeah.
That, I think that we should have change is where we have, the order of business. And this is on page 36. I would like it's on page 36, number 6, where it says presentations. And I would like to add, followed by council action if required, so that person isn't waiting through a 3-hour meeting. So I'd just like to add that there. And
Action items, is that what that's called?
Like a presentation or something.
like you have to
We'll figure out.
vote, or you have to decide something, that we don't make them wait until the end.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, at number 11, under department reports, are, that's fine, and department reports would fall in that place, but they would just be once per month during regular council sessions, and delivered by Heidi, for just information that's not included in our packets. So I don't know, that's probably not a change, but that's the way
Okay,
that's.
I thought I read that somewhere.
Yeah, so what I did was I took some of these, okay, let me just show you guys how this happened. So I was looking at the agendas, right, and making sure that they hadn't gotten too far away from what it says in the council rules of procedure as far as like 1, 2, 3, right? And then I noticed that not all of these had been defined. So there was some of them, by defined I mean have substance, right? And so I took those, like, I can't remember now, it's been too long. Like C even, the Pledge of Allegiance shall be led by the presiding officer. Like I wrote, shall be led by the presiding officer from the last ones. So what I had asked people to do on the council was to make sure that that this specific section was reflecting what we wanted. So that would be item 6, VI, order of business. So what I'm getting to is, yes, what you're saying is a yes. Under 10, number 10, and hopefully they kind of match up here, it should go in order. Does it go in order? What page is it? City manager report, here it is. J, so page 39J, I wrote all this. So each one of these things here, right, should have a definition to follow in the order that it appears. So department reports is on page 39J. So this is what I recently wrote, and if this is different than what you and I had, talked about in the last couple of weeks or days. So this all needs to be updated, is what I'm getting to reflect what you have asked for, which is no more presentations from staff and that they do not attend unless asked, right?
Yeah. So they,
But I like that.
yeah, we
Tell us
do too.
about
With the
what
exception of
Public
time.
Works is doing and what's happening and stuff, so I don't know.
I think that would still be wonderful if they were here, and, you know, you have questions, they're there to ask, so, but,
I thought
You
you wanted
gave-
me to answer
yes.
the question.
Yes.
Yes.
I do, because what I'm trying to do is to get
I
more
know.
packed to the
I
time that
understand.
we have. And so, yeah, Heidi would give a brief summary of all the different departments, plus everyone would have read what's in the council packet. And so, and then the council would have an opportunity for questions. So, okay, Jim?
I like having Kai here because he has information he gives us that's not in his report.
Mhm.
But if we say no, the city manager's gonna give it to us and we'll ask you a question. I'll get back to you, I'll have to talk to Kai, which is what's gonna happen. It's okay.
But you're gonna
But-
get your questions in before
Yeah,
the
but
meeting.
it says, the council by consensus may request additional city employees or outside consultants. The night of the meeting, it's a little late to, call Kai and say, hey, get your butt here, hurry up, because the council wants to see you. That won't work. So, go
Okay,
ahead,
Cale.
head on off.
I guess this is, if you don't want any, I guess, the staff are, giving reports like present, I guess that's fine, but we could alternate too, like, having Gwen, I know Gwen and Kai are the main department heads that are here, I know there's other reports, but usually it's those two, they could alternate too, like Kai could be here 1 month and then Gwen, and I think, I may have mentioned it before, but having them early on, so, I mean, if they wanna leave after they give the report, they can, instead of being here an hour or two, but
Yeah,
I guess they're already here, I don't know, but it also sounded like they like being at the meetings. So.
yeah, it doesn't, and that is a good thing too. So my goal is just to figure out how to keep the meetings from going so late. And so I thought, well, if we go through, Heidi goes through, anything that has happened since they wrote their report that's included in the packet and the time of the meeting, that should expedite things. And counselors are still invited to ask questions about those reports. So, Lucy?
Maybe we should have the reports at the workshop, and then if we have any questions, we can say, can Kai come to the council meeting? Because we might ask him specifics on some of these issues, and then he'll be here. And if we don't need any, then we just let it slide, and if we don't, then we ask for him and or Gwen to come in and do a presentation. The second part of that is, I hate to sound like this, but do we pay them to come to these meetings when they show?
They're on salary.
So, well, they do, so they would do it, but that way, if we had a question from Kai, we could ask him, and he could be at the council meeting, or Gwen, if she's doing a big calendar of events, and if they wanted to come, of course, I think they should be allowed to.
Oh, of course, yes. Okay, Jim?
Well, it wasn't that long ago, I know, Roxie will remember, we didn't get public works reports and library reports. We had to ask for those.
Mm-hmm.
And now they finally become something useful, and I understand your concern of, it takes a little longer in the meeting, but if we have a question, I'd like to get it answered now versus having to remember 2 days ago, well, I don't, I forget in the meeting sometimes what I'm supposed to be asking. 2 days later, did I ask that? I don't know.
Yeah, so it sounds like everybody's would prefer to have Kai and Gwen speak. So that's fine, maybe we can tackle it another way, like
Or
just
at least
really
we-
limit the time,
Or at least available, I mean, because sometimes we might not have a question for Kai, but he does like to be here, so.
And he is really good at
And
explaining
then
things.
sometimes he can jump in, from the side, hey, it's also, which is great.
All right, and Heidi?
Well, I see both sides completely, but I am still new in a lot of ways. And so it is nice for me to have both Gwen and Kai, their history and their knowledge,
Okay.
for me to be supportive.
All right, and Liz?
Also, rather than have, Lucy suggested have their reports at the work sessions, but I think the regular sessions are better attended by citizens, and they wanna hear those reports too. They probably wanna know what's going on in public works and the library as well, so.
Okay, and Lucy?
And make an adjustment to that, we could maybe have the reports earlier in the evening in case they wanted to go home. Maybe just move them up on the agenda so that, kind of like the other one that you were saying, when people have a presentation, we can vote on it now, so making them wait for
Yeah.
the whole meeting. Maybe we can just do the reports earlier, so that if they did want to go, they could, but we would still be able to ask them those questions at a regular council meeting.
Well, I'm hearing you, and I think you guys are right, let's just go back to that, where we, the person making the presentation is present, they make the presentation. They just don't repeat what is in your packet. And then there's kind of a time limit on it, so that they can't go on for 15 minutes on something unless something huge has happened. And Heidi,
So J2 is oral reports to the council should generally not exceed 10 minutes. Should we narrow it to 5?
because they'll talk longer than that, probably.
Okay, so we'll say, well, I'll just get better at timekeeping too.
And,
Okay.
you know,
Well,
if it's,
and I
if
should
it's,
too, I should be more. But I
if
need to
if
do-
it's the water project and it's a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
Mhm.
it's gonna take maybe 10
Absolutely.
minutes, but I think if all of us keep in mind, a time limit on what we're discussing at certain times, and there may be a better time at another time
mhm.
for that.
I certainly agree with that. And Cale?
And I think keeping the language there where it says should generally not exceed doesn't make it, so it's like they should not, so it still gives them room to go over.
Yeah, so it's not that absolute, like, you know, we're not gonna stop you right in the middle of a sentence about something that has a big effect on the town. Yeah, okay, I'm on board with that.
This is a section that I wrote from scratch, so I'll go back and make sure that it reflects what we're talking about here.
Okay. Yes,
Because sometimes when I'm talking to Kai anyway, it triggers another thought in the
Mhm.
process of doing a report, then that triggers my mind to something else that was on my mind that I didn't know about until he mentioned a specific.
Mhm.
And so then that's how conversations start. And I do find public works extremely interesting,
It's a huge part of what
because
we
it,
do.
you know, it
Yeah.
is, I just find it extremely interesting, so I don't think it's time wasted.
Okay. Well, let's go that route then. So,
So I'll just narrow it to 5, right?
yeah, let's do that, and then, you know, like
See.
Roxie was saying, there's gonna be exceptions when we've got something really important that needs to be discussed, and we need more information, then we definitely should do that. Roxie, did you have a?
Under, page 9 of council rules, actually page 40 of the packet.
Wait, I'm really sorry.
Okay.
But before we move on, I have written under J1, it says, okay, reports to council should be made in writing and including in the meeting materials. Where a written report is provided by a department head, outside consultant, or other city employee, no oral report should be given unless the department head, outside consultant, or city employee has additional pertinent information to provide, or council members have questions relating to the report. I don't think any revisions needed there.
No, I think that's
Okay.
great.
So check,
That covers it all.
just checking.
And you know, because under 3 right there, it says the presiding officer is authorized to call any report, including a question and answer section, to a conclusion. So if it does get carried away,
Yeah.
we can deal with it that way. Okay, so
Okay.
Roxy, you're on which
Page 40.
40, okay.
I noticed, L is now called
Yeah.
mayor and council comments.
Yes.
It's reserved for announcements, comments, or concerns to be added to a future council meeting.
Mhm.
If we're only having one meeting a month, could we not continue with the mayor council comments, but set a time limit for each council person?
So.
Sometimes I think something needs to be brought up, and there's no other time
Mhm.
that if it's not on the agenda.
You
And
know,
if we keep 3 minutes, I think even if everybody had 3 minutes, that wouldn't be that much longer. I don't think everybody would have 3 minutes every time, but setting a time limit should be fair for everyone.
okay, and I wondered in there too, if it, where it says, this is that same L, this is reserved for announcements, comments, concerns, and I thought maybe which may or may not be added to a
Yes.
future, maybe you just have something to say, you don't need it on the next.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we all appreciate being able to make a comment at the meeting.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily want it on
Well,
the
and
agenda.
it just might be something that's happened or something
Yeah,
that everyone needs to be know about that
Sure.
wasn't covered or whatever, just a small thing, but I would think 3 minutes would. help keep the agenda from going too long,
Okay, so
just my opinion.
it is discussion or inclusion of a public comment. Okay, so, in page 37, E1, it says 2 periods for public comment will be reserved for every regular meeting of the council. It is in the, I think it should be at the discretion of the mayor to determine the inclusion of a public comment period at any meeting other than a regular meeting of the city council. So, I guess what that says to me is, like, say there's, the public really, they've been listening intently to the workshop, and they, you know, that it's possible, while normally there is no public comment period during a workshop, but at the, you know, it says here that if we absolutely feel that's necessary, or that we could allow it. And then number 2, it says each public comment period shall not exceed a maximum of 30 minutes unless a majority of council members present. So I think that, you know, that should say unless the mayor or a majority of council members present vote to extend the time. And the reason I say that is just, sometimes you just need to act quickly and say, all right, we're gonna go another 5 minutes and not have to go into a vote over that. So I would just add in there on number 2, 30 minutes unless the mayor or a majority of council members present vote to extend the time. Yes, Jim?
On number 2, for once, right where you're at, it says members of the public may speak about any topic. And then you go on to number 4, and it says members of the public may speak about any topic during the last reading. Do we need a number 4? Just apply that to both and take
Yeah.
the 4 out of there?
Yeah, I question that too. So that makes you think that during the first public comment period, they're only to address items on the agenda?
That is initially how I thought it was set up, but that's not what it says here, so.
I agree.
What do you think, Heidi?
That was discussed, I think, early in my tenure here, like 2 mayors ago maybe. Members of the public may speak about any topic, including items placed on the agenda other than public hearings. So, in number 4 reiterates number 2, because, let's just ask this question. Do you want to hear people at the first public comment period that have anything to say or only on agenda items?
I thought it was only an agenda item.
How do you feel?
Now's the time.
First of all, with number 1, you said the 2 periods. I think that if people are coming to our workshop that they've never done before, I think we should let them have an opportunity to voice what they're thinking, because like tonight, there's 3 people in here. But, you know, if they should want to say something, and they've been listening to us very patiently, I think we should listen to what they have to say. They're sitting here during the whole meeting. And second of all, I don't care if they talk about something they would like us to discuss or talking about something that's on the agenda. If we start getting that many people that we've got to hold the horses back, well, that's great, because
That's a good problem to have.
yeah, that's a good problem to have. And I would encourage, once again, communication from our community.
Okay, I agree. Jim?
Yeah, I agree also that any topic, although I think it should be in parentheses or something, that applies to the city. You know, that means any topic, I mean, hey, let's talk about Ukraine.
Any
No, that's
scenario.
not gonna work, you know.
I see. I agree with that.
I don't know that it works like that in the law, so that is a Tyler question. I do not think that that's how it works though. That's a public meeting thing, because it's limiting free speech. Yes, so if people
I
want to
would
talk
love to
about
hear Tyler's
Ukraine,
opinion on that.
I will.
because
Okay, really, yes, I see. I
You
think
think
we'll say
so too,
leave it
Ken?
in.
Yeah, that they can talk about anything.
So did we discuss number 4, getting just,
Just taking it out.
it says the same thing as it says under number 2, maybe add a couple words, number 2, both the first and last public comment periods.
Okay. I got a note on that. Amen, Liz?
So on number 1, I'm sorry to go backwards, but the way I interpreted the second sentence is at the discretion of the mayor to determine the inclusion of a public comment period at any meeting other than a regular meeting of the city council. So that would include a regular meeting, at any meeting, right? The way I interpreted that was that if there wasn't anyone in the audience, you wouldn't have a second comment period.
Right,
That's the way I look at that.
and
It's
it
like-
saves a little bit of time because you don't have to read all the legality and then like that, you
Right.
know. I mean, that's not a big deal, but I'm looking for all kinds of ways to cut down time. Yeah, we love having people come to our meetings and,
But if no one's there, then.
but if no one's there, I don't see any reason to go through that process. Yes, Roxie?
According to the memo that's in front of this, that Heidi prepared, these are the rules for regular meetings.
Well, that's because I only was doing order of business updates.
Okay.
Because technically, we're supposed to update this whole thing in like January or February every year.
Yeah, I said we enter
So
after
I had
that.
only opened up just the section on order of business. So that memo was about that area.
I don't know, do we have different rules for workshops? We can have different agendas, but does it have to be different
Yeah,
rules?
well, so it's always been my understanding that there's 4 different types of meetings. There's a regular meeting, and this is how you enter agenda. There's a work session, no vote, just topic-based, just discussion. There's special sessions, which can be called, which are sometimes necessary in order for you to vote on something, and then that just is there. Well, there's 5 different, and then you have emergency meetings, which have a 24-hour at max, or at least 24-hour notification to the public for something that is absolutely emergent to talk about and vote on, usually. And then you have executive sessions, which are closed, except for to the media. So those are my understanding, and I thought, is there not a place in here that defines those? Public meeting law does?
I've read the same thing you just
I
said.
didn't see it
Right.
until
Page
this
43.
packet. I didn't see it until
Page 43, yes, regular special emergency.
43?
Yes.
Emergency executive.
So it's 4, 5 work sessions at the back, yeah.
And so while we're there, on page 44 under C, says work sessions are to be scheduled by the city manager, and so now this is gonna become a regular thing. So work sessions are held on the first Monday of each month.
I'm sorry, what page are you
44.
Lost two. 44?
44,
Packet.
C.
Work
Pages of
sessions.
Okay.
None of the,
44 of 80.
I know, I was looking at how that relates to. What? Okay, sorry.
I mentioned page 44 because it has all of the different types of meetings that you were explaining. And then Marianne was talking about work session, C, where she suggests to change the language into the first Monday, since it's gonna become more of a regular thing.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just looking, 44 and 72 are the same pages, so I got kind of lost.
So you were on the original one.
Yeah.
Oops.
Work sessions can be scheduled by, the city manager or the mayor. We're just talking about schedule, we're not talking about the content, right? Scheduling is my job, like, making sure that they get posted for, making sure that the agenda,
but if we have public comment, our work sessions may end up
Going back.
public comment and lasting. Like tonight's, we don't have public comment. We're still going on, but
Wait a
point
week
being,
tonight.
we need this work session for this purpose.
Yes, I agree with that too, yeah.
So you're suggesting not to have public comments on
And
work
you
sessions?
know what, if we leave it to where it's at the discretion of the mayor, then we don't have to, or say there's no one here, or it's not a topic that he wants, you know.
30 people come in and we have an agenda.
Yeah, and you're still not required to.
I know this is unpopular perhaps, but you should not also shy away from calling them special sessions, even if you're gonna have a work session, because tonight we could have voted on Heidi as to then go forward with the task, getting a hold of Encompass. At this point, it's just a consent, but that's also the point of a special session, is it allows you to have that work session, that lead up, and then to have the vote. It just informs the public that there could be a vote tonight.
Yeah, So I guess what I was really aiming for with the work session is just what we're trying to do tonight, where we get into these discussions in depth so that we can take action on them. So I just thought, the special session, and it just kept going more and more, and the next thing you know, you can't tell the difference between a special session and a regular council meeting. But it will be different, so I could go either way on that, however you wanna do it, but, because the format will be the format of the work session.
Well, I'm thinking if the work session works, then the regular meeting will work better.
Okay, that's my goal there too.
I think that's what. Well, if the work session works, if we have an opportunity to do our discussion, talk back and forth between council members about different subjects, there'll be less of that done at the regular meeting.
And you go into the meeting ready to vote because you've had a chance to learn what you wanna learn and
That's
question what you wanna
that meeting,
question.
not that you won't have a question before, but that's why we have an opportunity to talk to Heidi, email or call whatever before the, meeting in case we do have something that doesn't come up. But that, it just seems more logical to have the freedom to be able to talk amongst ourselves at a meeting that we aren't pressured to vote and can get more information before we do vote if we think we need to.
Okay, and Jim?
It identifies in the chapter 2, page 43, that the council normally shall meet on the third Monday of each month. Okay. I don't see where it says in here that work session will be on the first Monday of the month.
I think because it's so new.
It's what?
So new.
Well, no, we've been doing work sessions before.
Oh, okay.
Matter of fact, I was jokingly saying that I didn't realize they were work sessions, I just thought that was a meeting where you didn't give the pledge of allegiance.
I
'Cause
know.
I didn't see any difference, but now I understand the difference, so we had been doing work sessions.
Yeah,
But, my point about that would be, do all our meetings have to be either on the first or third Monday of the month? I mean,
No,
we've
we can have a
had
special
other
meeting.
meetings.
You can have a special session at another time.
Yeah, that's what, same thing with
Okay.
a work session, I think,
so
if we
you,
got
yes.
something going on, kinda like this, maybe we should have a second meeting about it.
So you'd be willing to go work session first Monday, regular third, but then on occasion have a special session?
Yeah, special or work, just so we get our ducks in a row and things squared away for the city.
A couple weekends ago, when we
Yeah.
talked about this.
Okay, all right, Heidi?
So the only requirement that you have for any meeting is one a month, and I believe that it says in the charter that it will be the first, it's in the charter, right? That it will be the third Monday of the month. Outside of that, when I was considering coming to this job, I thought that I read the charter and that was the only requirement. So the other ones have just been, because they're needed. And so oftentimes too, what happens is, you guys, there's a lot of work that needs to be voted on and comes out of this. And so it hasn't been that I have been trying to take away your time to have a work session or to have dialogue, but it's that there has been substance that needs to come to you sooner than once a month. So that's kind of the pull on this whole thing, right? Is you do need time. You definitely need time to talk about things. Marianne's right about that. And Roxie, saying that, but there's also, on occasion, there will be times when a vote for something cannot wait.
Okay.
Just
Well, I
so you
agree
know.
with that, we voted on 3 or 4 things in a second.
Okay, all right, Lizzie.
So first of all, I just want to remind everybody that this document, when we get done with this, that'll be one less thing that we have to sit down and discuss. So just remember that we're going through, well, there'll be always something else, like the water waste project, that'll be something different. And also, just for disclosure, Roxanne, on page 40, under the mayor and council comments, I don't mind 3 minutes, but I might not use my whole 3 minutes at once. Because once again, when I'm doing council concerns, and I usually have a little paper over here, but sometimes she'll say something, or you'll say something, it's kind of like, hi, it triggers me to think about something else. So unless you're gonna time me, I might do, a minute here and, 30 seconds here and a minute over there, but it might add up to 3 minutes, but it's not gonna be all at once. So I just want that to be known, because my thoughts sometimes come sporadically fed off of what you guys happen to share with me.
Well, one
I'm
thing
not
we do,
naming that at you specifically.
But you know what I meant, well, I
I'm
just
just
wanted
saying
to
all
make
of us
sure.
But
get
just,
somewhere, you know.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm
we
just to
have
make sure. Okay.
and then, on item D, it says, on page 44, under work sessions, it says the city manager is to invite any relevant staff to work sessions so that the sessions are as productive as possible. And I would like a comma with mayor's approval on that one too, because I'd like to know what to expect at this meeting, and sometimes I might, like, there's some meetings that we just, on a work session especially, where we want to talk to each other and not necessarily have a presentation, because that would cut into our discussion time. So sometimes it's good, especially if it's somebody who's right on topic with what we're talking about, but sometimes, it would not be good, because we just, we need to have like these around the table discussions about it. So all I mean by that is communication.
I think it's interesting that you read it like that, because I think that this, to me, reads different, by the way. This means that you, the council, would be upset if we didn't invite somebody that was relevant to the discussion so that everybody's prepared.
Okay.
So that's an interesting, just, two different perspectives. This is
Okay.
like you better or else, and you're reading it like she may be bringing somebody else that we don't need.
Yeah, like I'm thinking somebody would
Yeah.
come in and take a lot of time.
Yeah,
So I think that could probably be pretty easy, let's just talk to each other about it.
I have to be excused just for the way.
That's all I had on those. Does anybody have anything else that they feel on the rules of procedure that need to be addressed or they
Yeah,
need
there's
to
a
see?
couple.
Okay, Jim, what do you got?
On page 7,
Page-
sorry, let me rephrase that, I have to go to page 7, which is really something else in the packet.
Yeah.
Uh,
38.
yeah, page 38 of 88,
Okay,
of course. Right where it's supposed to be, and I took notes, so let's go to page 10 of the packet, which is 41.
okay,
Number 8,
okay.
font size, bottom half of the paragraph. You need a magnifying glass.
For number 8?
Yep, on page 41. Presiding officer, with the approval of the council meeting, if that is a smaller font. I'm not losing my mind.
Oh, yeah, the last couple sentences.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, yeah,
Yeah.
now I didn't get that
And
right.
I thought I found another one, and I thought I'd circle it, but of course not. That would require some effort on my part, so I found that. That one was easy. Ooh, on page, hang on, since I was stupid to get it on page 47 of 88, number 2, font size again, members of the council shall reveal blah, 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 and then all of a sudden, it's like contact information, yeah, it just shrinks.
Probably just trying to fit it on the same page.
Yeah, I thought of that, it's like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that, change the font size of the whole article, or do whatever.
Yeah,
And can I say something while you're looking at that?
yeah.
Roxanne, just to make sure, I didn't take offense on that, but I just wanted you to know that sometimes my thoughts are sporadic. And, in case you're kind of like, Lucy, you're 3 minutes, and I was just thinking, but I don't think like everybody else.
Really?
I just wanted to, yeah.
Really?
I'm disclosing that in open public.
We can
My
have
thoughts
it
come
all.
out when we. Okay.
Excuse me. Anyone else? Oh, yeah, Heidi?
Sorry, one final thing. I have, and I'm not trying to be rebel rouser or anything here, but I have worked with a couple of mayors who have not been very responsive mayors. So this I'm not trying to change the communication at all, but I do want us to also think about, in that situation, about like the approval of, agenda or something, business still has to go on, right? So I think we need to say, it needs to be more clear, so you and Tyler and I need to talk about this, I think.
Okay.
About how long, because with all the public meeting laws, I think we need to have a class on public meeting laws too. And the requirements of what those look like would be very helpful for this group. But we need to have some sort of a fail-safe in there, because we do have to post them with a certain amount of time. we have all those time requirements, and so it's
Oh.
like, I need to get them to the mayor within a certain amount of time, and then that mayor has to be responsive, because otherwise we'll go without a meeting.
Well, you know, we could reword it like,
I think you and I, we'll just sit down and we'll hammer
Yeah.
this out, Marianne.
okay, sounds good. All right, but I think that's what it's all about, really, is communicating. Okay.
We need to have like a fail-safe.
You're
Yeah.
right, you're right.
True, that's true, okay. So anything else, while you were going, Jim found some font sizes that did not match up
Yeah.
on a couple pages.
That's really minor, it wasn't the gist of the, what it said, it was just small font size. On page 38, down under F, I get the idea, it may include only 2 presentations by outside organizations. I get that, we wanna get done on time. If we cut down the amount of time we allow them to present, maybe we squeeze 3 in if need be. I think 2 might cut it off, but we've had up to 4 presentations in the past, and all of them were relevant. I feel bad that if we say, no, only 2, the third one that we might wanna talk about, sorry, we'll do that next month. You know,
Liz,
I choose good, because usually after a presentation, we have questions, and there's some dialogue, and it takes some time, you know, when you add in the questions afterward. I know the one meeting we had 3 presentations, it went to 11:30, it's too long.
that is too long.
It's just.
You know, I try to respect that, you know, people that have jobs in the morning, they have kids to get to school and all of that.
I used to
So,
be one of those, yeah, I get it.
yeah, so I agree about that, you know, and people who come to the meetings, you know, they probably have work in the morning too, so. I'm trying to figure out ways that our meetings don't take that long, and we still are efficient in accomplishing things.
I really think that it should just be one presentation, because, because oftentimes presentations are geared toward a work session almost, or an item, and so it's like your presenter, like Encompass, should have probably come to this and been a part of the work session discussion, right? And then, that's just my opinion, I think presentations are nice, but they're like a side dish, like an optional appetizer.
Well, the ODOT one was really relevant too.
Right.
Yeah.
But not a work session topic.
Yeah.
Okay, and Cale?
So like maybe just have 1 for regular meetings and then you could have 4 at a work session.
Well,
Or a special
I would
session.
really hate to have that many, I mean, cause again, I think, you know, what we were trying for in the work session is for you guys to talk, you know, and for you to, you know, feed information to each other and discussion, and so that we can make moves to make accomplishments, to be more efficient and get things moving. So, Lucy?
So I think parental discretion is advised. You know, if someone's coming in to do a presentation, hey, you know, how long is that gonna take? About 5 minutes. And you 2 ought to know, like, for example, I'm just gonna use this, like the cheerleaders asking for money, you know, that doesn't take long. And that's a 5-minute deal, and you guys are savvy, you know, think, okay, add 5 more minutes on there, somebody else has a question, next 10 minutes. Huh?
So the time.
Each one could have a time, especially if you ask them ahead of time, you know, how
Well,
long do you think it's gonna take, 5 minutes?
some are gonna be short, and that way maybe you could put 3, if they're just short little things. But if it's a informative, digestive presentation, then dialogue would be maybe something we'd wanna have, and you maybe only do your 1 or 2.
Okay, Heidi?
I try to tell all presenters they have 7 minutes with 3 minutes of follow-up Q&A. That's it. So what we need to do is just start a timer for them as well. But that kind of feels rude sometimes,
Yeah, I
and
know.
they've driven a long way to do that, but I absolutely have done that for many years. I've tried to do the presenters 7 minutes, 3 minutes Q&A. I guess what I'm getting hung up to is the word presenter versus guest speaker. So, or guest, yes, so with the work sessions, like a guest speaker is sometimes helpful to have. I've seen that before. We can't have a conversation on things if we don't have the foundation or the framework for like a
for this meeting is that the council needs to start planning for our goal setting sessions, and so that's a thing that you know now. I mean, you've known, we've talked about this before, and we've given some examples and all of that. So that will be, I'm sure that will be the topic of our next work session. And so now you know, and so now you can really, when you have time to think, like when you're driving down the street in your car, start thinking about what are the most important things we need to do for sure. But then we get to that goal planning, and I believe we'll have a leader, which is where
I have all kinds of information about the goal setting, not all kinds, just a little bit, but I think Lucy.
Well, just the fact that like if the compass comes back here again, I would just kind of have one presenter.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, the fact that those guys are pretty heavily condensed.
well, I wondered when they're
Because that's not a 7-minute.
they're an entity that we're gonna make up a decision eventually whether to use them or not. So that's what I was kind of thinking, that should a person you're gonna decide whether or not to engage them in service really be at the meeting where we're talking about it, you know, that would be my thought for having them at a meeting like this. But if all goes well with what we've talked about tonight, then by all means, they should be at the work session if that's what we're talking about. Yes, Jim?
I have a question for Heidi. Is our goal tonight to get the council rules of procedure totally taken care of so that we can vote on it next time?
This is enough feedback to make some changes, and then we should review it again in 6 months.
Well, I have a couple more that I spotted, but you know, I don't wanna beat it to death.
Jim, why don't you go ahead, because I think we've gone around and, yeah, I didn't think anybody was gonna, we really probably could get finished with this part, right? So, what is it you wanted to add, Jim?
On page 41, number
Okay.
9.
Number 9.
Council takes action by motion on the matter, continues the hearing, or keep the record open for additional written testimony. Yeah, we put stuff on hold. I don't know that we were asking for written information. We were probably asking Heidi, what's the deal here, Heidi?
This is public hearings, and public hearings are very tightly regulated by state law, so.
So you're thinking that if we do what I just said, we're breaking the law because we didn't get written, we just got verbal information?
No, that's for public hearings. So like land use, public hearings.
Okay.
At the end of public testimony, yeah, that's just for public hearings.
Okay.
That's like the legal times.
And then the last thing, I hope, because I my notes are. Yeah, in no event shall a person who made a public comment leave the meeting without providing a public comment form with required information.
We're yet there.
Yeah, we're
On
gonna-
page 37 of the number 3.
Okay,
And, you know, it's what I just said, except what we do about the people on Zoom who are allowed to join in. Hard to get a form from them before the meeting.
Heidi?
We've been our city recorders have been working on that,
Okay.
so we are almost there, right?
So what will,
They're
It's
there.
up.
how will
It's
that,
up, we're done.
how will that look, Omega?
Actually, you can go into our city website,
Okay.
and it's gonna be when you click on, the agendas and stuff like that, it
Okay.
has a Zoom form that you can put in, and you can decide if it's for planning, meeting, or if it's for city council meeting, what item, you can write all of that information
You
down.
just click and you just
Nice
fill it
job.
out.
And so then we're going to
Great.
put that in the chat box so people can click on it during the meetings if they talk.
Yeah, and in the beginning, if we had them in advance, we would give them to you for you to read out loud.
Excellent, okay. And
This new system must be working awesomely.
I was gonna say what the school does, they have a Google form. So if where we have our info for going into the live stream and stuff, there's a public comment thing, but that sounds, you guys use Zoom, we use YouTube, but that sounds like it works. So,
We should check theirs
another
out.
option.
There is an option, I think, can I speak on this? The problem with us using Google Suite, any sort of Google Suite, is that is not our IT department. So our IT is with MCS and they take care of anything with Microsoft programs.
All right, we paid them well, so, did we get, oh, yes.
So tell me, if somebody's clicking in on Zoom, when do you ask them, if they've already got your Zoom address, do they have to ask the city prior to the meeting if they can come in? Or do they just, if they know the entering, you know, I don't know if it's on the city website, I get one sent to me to join a Zoom. Is that the way it goes? I have to ask you before the meeting, or do you hear from them for the first time on the screen here tonight?
It is not shown on their screen. That is the unfortunate of having a Zoom when we're not the ones presenting. But we could ask in the beginning of our public comment period, when we're reading all that other language, we can add in there saying there is a form online for those folks that are online, present and wanting to speak.
Okay.
Are you also asking how people join the Zoom?
I know how to join a Zoom,
But if you wanted to join the cities, so there's like 3 or 4 different ways. And so at the top of your agenda, we have join with your computer here, and so you can type that in. We have join by telephone, dial in the US, and we have 3 different numbers, and then we list the meeting ID, right? And then, or you can just directly go into the page here, or into our city's website, and then, oh my god.
So right here, if you go to our city website under government,
Says join meeting.
you will see right here, public comment form.
Have that now available at
So
any
you go
time.
ahead, click it, and then just put in what you need in here, and voila, it gets to our, into our systems.
What if you've already joined the meeting? What if you've already Zoomed in and joined the meeting?
You, if
Can you
you're,
still access the
yes,
form?
yes, it depends on how you're using, like, if you're using your phone to use Zoom, you can just go into a different, browser. That's what
Okay.
it opens up an app for you.
So let's.
Which you
I'm
can
glad
also,
you know this.
you
All
can
right.
also just click in several places to
Okay, so, any other,
I have a question.
okay.
We've got resolution 2023-H8 sitting in front of us, and I know we're not gonna vote on it tonight.
Right.
Are we gonna see that at our next regular meeting? Is that
That's
your
the
intention?
goal, to take all these comments and put them into the, whatever it's called, the final draft, which will never be your final draft.
As it was, just to let you know,
It's a living, breathing, working document.
you gave us, both the original and the one with the changes. I had to break them out and go page by page, and I did that, but it takes a long time. If we're gonna do that again, that's fine, but that, it's like you just said, it's still not gonna be. I'd be willing to bet that.
It's because it was only meant for that order of business section. So.
Okay. So, we will, yes, we'll revisit that at our regular council meeting, and now it is time for us to go into an executive session. So, the city of Sheridan will now meet in executive session. Today is, September 5th, 2023, and the time is 9:45 PM. Pursuant to ORS 1926602H, communications within a public body or between public bodies of an advisory nature to the extent that they cover other than purely factual materials and are preliminary to any final agency determination of policy or action. This exemption shall not apply unless the public body shows that, in the particular instance, the public interest in encouraging frank communication between officials and employees of public bodies prioritizes the public interest. In disclosure, representative of the news media, designated staff, and other and other persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session in person. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced.